Those are some great words from some of the best gamers in the world, and also Delson telling us what the best gamers in the world said. Once again, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring us in Season 9 of the SPL. And if you guys want to go to smitegame.com/Alienware and then use code AWSmite09, you can get your hands on all that great Alienware gear that we use here on the studio, as see like the laptop stuff like that. The players are playing on all that good stuff. You guys know it by now. Come on, it's some of the best PCs on the market for a reason. So thank you so much to them. And now we're gonna get back into the SPL. I'm Charlie Relly, joined here with Hurrywind on the desk to talk about this upcoming set. We have the Oni Warriors versus the Camelot Kings. Definitely should be a good one because just yesterday, I mean, the Oni Warriors really start heating up, still undefeated in the league at the moment, taking on the Jade Dragons, ending their massive win streak. And the Camelot Kings, I mean, they've been on the top of the standings for quite some time. So, battle of the top seeds for sure.
Yeah, this is a matchup I've been looking forward to as well because Genetics on Twitter has really been making a big deal about taking out his nemesis, Neilma, on the other side. Now, we're not going to be talking too much more about that, but if you know, you know. I know Genetics kind of, in some of his preseason stuff, was kind of talking about Neil and saying he's maybe a little bit washed, so maybe this is a little bit of a grudge match. You guys can get excited on their behalf and see how they match up today.
As long as I love watching some friendly trash talk, all in good fun, that sort of thing. So Genetics always a big talker there. But I do want to dial in to talk about the Oni Warriors because again, they did just look real clean yesterday. That's the kind of set that when you want to follow that up and you want to play at that same level, right? You never want to have a great set like that and then follow up with nothing. I think the team as a whole looked great, but Vote in particular, this ADC role, he's come back from playing things like the Poseidon. He's been playing mages for a bit, but also just locked into these hard carries. The Cupid, for example, he was really enjoying yesterday. Such a diverse player, able to really rotate to these team fights later on and bring in that hard carry potential that you would really want from any ADC. And I think Vote in particular has really stepped up for a big way in Phase 3 of Season 9.
Yeah, I love that Vote is a player that can play these other styles, but when I really love Vote is when he's playing the meta ADC picks. I mean, the guy is a hunter player through and through as much as he wants to fight it.
Yeah.
When he is on characters like this Cupid, like we saw the other day, or when he's on other meta characters, maybe like the Artemis, other things that people consider to be meta ADCs these days, he's just on point, man. The guy does not miss auto attacks. He's where he needs to be. He's hitting who he needs to be hitting. He plays great with his other backliner, Dar does as well. So I love seeing Vote on these meta picks. If I was against Vote right now, I'd be looking to take away, especially this Cupid that we saw him dominating on the other day. He's definitely someone to keep your eye on. He's kind of the unsung hero, I think, of the Warriors, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it because more often than not, there is some aggression that the Oni Warriors like to play through in the dual lane every once in a while, but more often than not, Vote's sitting tower line. He's not caring too much about like these 1v1 engagements. He's just, sort of like Bear just played in that last set where he's like, I'm going to sit at the tower line. I'll rotate at level 20. Like when I have damage to carry this game, then yeah, we'll do that carrying. But, it just really depends on how he's going to be playing today. And I don't know how else we could figure that out unless we interviewed him. Maybe J-Mac could help us out with that?
Yeah, thank you so much. I am in the booth here with the Oni Warriors, standing right next to Vote, the man they were just talking about for that pregame interview. And we were kind of making some jokes there, but it looked like you were a little bit of a one-trick during those highlights. Are we going to be expecting anything more than the Cupid coming out today?
I can't divulge that information.
Oh, can't get rid of it. Oh, okay. Can't get rid of that information. However, you are going up against Netroid, who we've also seen be not necessarily a bit of a one-trick, but kind of standard in his picks. I mean, we've been seeing, like Cupid, Chiron maybe come out there. Is there anything up against Vote that you're maybe kind of scared that he might pull out against you?
Maybe I know. After yesterday's games, he kept him in the dirt, so maybe if I was a bit scared.
Okay, might be scared of the on-her there, but you do have Neilma at least for you in the dual lane. Does that give you a little bit of comfort knowing that you have Neilma, former world champion, standing by you in the lane?
No.
No comfort whatsoever by Vote. Well, we'll see if the Oni Warriors can keep up their winning streak in this set. We'll take it back over to the desk.
I mean, I can assure you, anytime I have tried to just interview the Oni Warriors, they are never giving you straight answers like that, of course. And that makes sense, right? Telling you what kind of picks you're going to play right before a match, that makes sense. But if I say anything like, are you guys feeling confident? They'll be like, no, I play with this guy. Like, how could I be confident when Neilma's on my team or Kivo's on my team? They always like to poke light fun. But also, I think that shows a level of confidence. Coming into a set like this, when you can make jokes like that, shows that they're probably pretty prepared.
You never know with Vote if it quite is a joke or not.
That's fair.
I mean, come on, you got Neil. I mean, that guy's a crutch. I mean, let's be real. But no, much love. I love those kind of team environments. It's hard to hate the guys when they do stuff like that too. And And I love the personality that the Warriors bring. And honestly, just talking about the Warriors in general today, I am curious, just especially seeing like how Vote's doing. Who's he up again?
Netroid.
Netroid,
Yeah.
that's right, Netroid. And to be honest, these are very different players, right? These are very different players that do very different things. But like we mentioned, and like J-Mac mentioned as well, they're playing a lot of the standard meta ADCs now. I think Cupid's going to be highly contested today. I'm not really sure when I think about their god pulls when they go beyond. Is it going to be stuff like the Chiron? Is it going to be stuff like the maybe the Rama I've seen some people pull out lately? I'm not sure what you think about that, Trilly.
Yeah, I'm curious because they've been playing so many different styles in the duo lane. For example, like the Horus I was about to bring up. It's one of those things that you can't prepare for because you never know where Genex is going to take you. You're going to get some pretty early lane pressure with that sustain or the CC rather, but they always do have that ability to throw Netroid on one of these ability-based hunters. Of course, BMT could as soon pilot those hunters as well in the mid lane. It's just a difficult team to draft up against because what are you going to ban out? Usually, it's been Genetics taking most of these bans. The Ymir, the Terra, the Yamoja, of course, Khepri, all of these different supports that help facilitate Netroid and help him just get online in lane so that he can come online, and do plays like this where he's just so far ahead at 20 minutes in. ADCs, they're hard carries for a reason. If you can let them get ahead, if you can put them in a position to just auto-attack tanks late game, they're going to be shredding. It's going to be extremely difficult to deal with.
And I'm glad you brought it up too, because both mid laners on this team are perfectly capable of playing some of these hunter picks too. So they've got a lot of flex potential with those two different mid laners that play those hunters. Big Man maybe plays more of the ability based. Dardes maybe goes for more auto tech based characters. We've seen him play things like Jingwei mid in the past, and just yesterday we saw him play the Kernina.
That's
so
true.
They definitely have a lot of flexibility in that. That will make drafting a little bit easier on both of these teams, and I wouldn't be surprised in this current meta to see some more hunter mids coming through.
Yeah, so for what you just said, do you think the AMC is going to be a pick that's pretty highly contested here? Because I think both mid laners, BMT doesn't love the AMC, but he'll play it whenever he gets the chance. I think, the Uller has sort of fallen by the wayside for a while. It was top pick, top ban for a bit. Do you think that could be something they're looking at here while we do get into picks and bans?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that he's perfectly capable. We'll see if he ends up pulling it out today. I expect it to be banned, but we'll see.
All right, we'll have to see if AMC is something that these teams look at. If we're going by the typical meta stuff, I imagine the Ymir is something that Genetics does not get his hands on, but whenever teams are up against the Oni Warriors, two picks for me stand out to not let them have. It's always the Daji and the Morgan. Giving Dardes and Cuvo that combo is absolutely lethal, and there's not too many answers for it because you only get one pair of beads, right? Even if you, like Hell's not quite in the meta at the moment, the Cleanse is not really coming into play. I haven't seen too much Geb as of recent, so whenever that combination gets through, I do expect it to be extremely difficult to deal with. And there is going to be the AMC taken away. That is something that the Kings want to make sure that Dardes doesn't get his hands on. But also, of course, when you're up against the Kings, the Oni Warriors are taking away the Khepri and the Yamoja. Wouldn't be surprised if the Ymir or the Cabrakan followed suit as well.
Yeah, I'm ready to see Ymir banned next if I were to guess. I think Genetics, I heard him talking about this the other day, that he is ready for these target bans, so I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve and available ready. It's going to be the Cabrakan, actually. Maybe they're looking to take the Ymir is my guess. I would be surprised. I am actually surprised, to be honest, that they choose to give the Ymir up over the Cabrakan. I think that could be a mistake, but we'll see. Genetics obviously very lethal on this pick as well.
Yeah, so they are going to just cement themselves some early lane pressure as well as, I think the reason that Ymir used to be picked was to this good counter pick and just, they picked a lot of immobile characters, now we have the wall. Ymir's at the point now where as long as you're on point with the walls, it doesn't matter if they draft a bunch of leaps. It doesn't matter if they have those phantom shells. You're still going to get immense value from this Ymir early on. And I did get a chance to sit down with the Tartarus Titans, for content day a bit ago. And Aurora said, one of the best gods in the game to get the Interceptor and just be an absolute unit in that lane is Ymir. Like, he is impossible to fight once he gets some extra damage online. The Oni Warriors are just going to grab the Morgan and Chiron respectively. So, I mean, we haven't seen the Morgan in duo lane, so that tells me Chiron over the duo lane. It looks like Vote probably going to be piloting that one. Some great, artillery damage from far away. That's what Centaurus is going to bring. And no transformations yet that the Morgan has, but whenever you see those junglers locked in, it's always going to give you some good options for the Morgan.
Yeah, so we're going to have to look and see what the Warriors are looking to pick up later on in this draft to pair with their Morgan. I'm not surprised that Dardes wants to take that away ASAP. He's happy to get his hands on it. He doesn't want to risk it getting any further in the draft. They're actually also going to pick the Chiron. Maybe it's to take it away from the Kings, but 2 carry picks early on in the draft is a bit unusual. But the Warriors know what they want, and they wanted Morgan and Chiron, so no surprise there. Then on the opposite side, the Kings are going to pick up Naja and Vulcan. No surprise to see these players on these picks. These are quintessential Twig and Big Man Tings picks as of late, so no surprise to see those picks. The Kings kind of are all on their signature gods right now in this top 3.
Yeah, I do love seeing Twig on the Naja because, I mean, the last 2 times he played it, he got first blood in both games. They still won, but I remember interviewing after. I was like, you guys like let Twig get first blooded both times in a row, and Janex just said like, hey, that's just what we expect.
That's
you know, like yeah, that's part of what we have to deal with. He likes playing the Naja. Sure, he'll die early, but he's still gonna hit those ults, and that's what we care about. And I also love to see that the Vulcan, which has been so highly prioritized as of recent, because of those buffs and changes to not only the cooldown on the turret, but also on backfire, no longer getting crippled, has just made this Vulcan such a lethal force in the mid lane, and having that follow-up for Windfire Wheels is always going to be a solid play. But over on the Oni Warriors side, they are going to grab Pele for Cuvo Fred, which just gives Dardes a great time. The Pele is going to be really difficult to deal with, and double Pele is not much easier, right? Like, it's just a ton of damage, a ton of movement speed, and a good amount of safety. As long as Genetics isn't walling off that ultimate, you should be able to get out of trouble whenever possible. But going into the second wave of bans, just taking away Heimdall and Chernobog, trying to get rid of some of the safer ADC picks, I would say. I mean, Heimdall, probably one of, if not the safest, besides like maybe Jingwei in that sense, and Chernobog can stall for such a long time. I can see why the Oni Warriors don't want to deal with that. And of course, I mean, the Kings are just going to take away Fafnir. Double Hunter composition is not going to be a Hunter in this slot in this case because they already have the Morgan, but tons of DPS. They don't want to deal with that. And as you said yesterday, Ymir, pretty immobile. The amount of stuns that Fafnir can bring makes his life a little more difficult.
Yeah, I always like the Fafnir into the Ymir, and it's also just a pick that Neil's shown to be very comfortable on. They also ban out the Cthulhu, and my guess is they don't want to deal with double Cthulhu, which I think is a good call. Neil's ultimately going to go for the Bacchus here for his support pick into the Ymir. I think this is another pick that's good at punishing this immobile Ymir. He has 2 forms of CC to kind of lock him down in place, especially if you couple that with something like a Brace or a Sunder to help your carries really finish off that Ymir when he gets caught out potentially on the other side of the map. The Kings are actually going to elect for a Cerberus, which I know has got to be going to Variety in this case, and a Hou-Yi last pick as well. Hou-Yi, I actually consider to be a very strong ADC pick right now. It's just Cupid is always on the table, and you hate playing Hou-Yi into Cupid. It's just a terrible matchup that no one wants to play into. I actually love to see this Hou-Yi pick. You know, the Warriors elected to ban out other Hunters here, but I think they're going to be regretting not banning away this Hou-Yi here in this draft.
Yeah, Netroid does like the Hou-Yi as well. I mean, he's always able to find the big bounces in that lane, which are just so annoying to deal with because there is an element of randomness involved, but also it's just once you learn those lineups, once you know when people are walking up, you can always get some big damage or force a relic out in that situation. So now we're going to see what the Oni Warriors are going to be drafting to go up against this Cerberus. Not too much healing, but you know, the Pele passive is certainly going to come into play as well as the Chiron passive in that regard. So some good value there, but I think more than anything, Variety just does like this pick. Whenever it is in meta, he's playing, but at the moment, not too many people are grabbing the Cerberus, and Variety has still been able to make some pretty key rotations whenever that pick comes through. Surprised that we're getting a 10th pick, King Arthur, but let's be honest, he has sort of fallen by the wayside to other more meta picks at the moment, and that's just going to round out the end of the Oni Warriors draft. For my take, it's really just like Pele and maybe like a Vulcan if you're trying to burn down an objective that Dardes can really transform into. If you wanted to start a fight, do you think there's any value in just saying like, hey, we're going to do double Chiron ult to start off the fight, poke everyone out to half HP before we siege, or is it just going to be Pele pretty much on cooldown?
Some players like to get a little quirky with it. I think Dardes is probably going to stick to his tried and true Pele. That's why they picked it early. We talked about it in our last set too, but it's just a reliable pick.
Right.
It's always going to do what it's going to do. Dardes definitely likes his assassins when it comes to his transformation, so I would really expect that to be who he sticks to, unless he finds himself in a bad spot where he might have a tank transform ready and available.
Yeah, something to get over the wall, I imagine, could be like a hotkey. You know, Hou-Yi brings that sort of safety, anything like that. But, you know, I've been harping on this a lot whenever I see the Naja pick, because it has been picked a fair bit, a lot of games, but not too many wins. More often than not, when it does win, it's paired with this Vulcan. Do you think the Kings have drafted enough burst to follow up on Captain Twig's ultimates here? Is Vulcan all you need, right? If you see Vulcan and Naja, that's the only burst you need to follow up on that Naja ult?
Yeah, I think they really did their homework, and they definitely know what Naja works with compared to what we saw earlier. Vulcan alone is plenty enough damage. I've seen situations where someone just plops the turret down and says that'll take care of the kill, because especially with the damage Naja, that usually does most of the damage. You don't need too much reliable damage coming in off of that, but you do need something that can hit from range and hit over walls, and Vulcan can definitely do that.
Okay, so Vulcan's going to provide that sort of damage, but on the other side, I am a little bit worried about Dardas because he has to try and get to the backline to really make the Morgan's kit that effective. You have to be able to get to the backline, and I see a ton of big AoE damage. You know, Genetics is going to be on this Ymir. It's not going to be easy to just step up in that sense, and Variety on the Cerberus can be extremely lethal. Do you imagine that Dardas is going to be able to find that, or do you think that because there's just so much CC, that maybe Dardas has to play a little back and wait for the engage to come through?
Yeah, Dardas needs people to make space for him. That's really the thing about the Morgan. Now, when I am playing the Morgan, I'm really looking at their backliners and seeing how easy they are to go on. And I see a Vulcan who's pretty tough to go on, to be honest. He's pretty mobile. You're going to have to get by his turret. You're going to have to get by his onslaught of AoE damage. And you're going to have to get onto a Hou Yi who has an instant jump. So I think it could be a tough game for him, but it is Dardas we're talking about.
It is Dardas, and the Oni Warriors versus the Camelot Kings. It's going to be a tough one, but let's jump right into game and figure out how this is going to go. We got J-Mac and Gore.
Thank you so much, Trelly and Hurry on the desk for breaking that one down for us. We jump into game one with the Camelot Kings and the Oni Warriors. Both of these teams hot off of a win just earlier in the week. Kings were able to find their victory a couple days ago, and now the Oni Warriors have just recently stopped the Dragons' winning streak. They were on a 10-game streak for the Jade Dragons. The Oni Warriors stopped that one in its tracks, ended it with tying at least the SPL record for most sets, and now it's the Oni Warriors who are the only undefeated team in the league right now, Gore. Going up against the Camelot Kings should be another tough matchup for these guys.
And then, you know what? I think the Kings are going to look to end that, right? Just make it so that we don't have that conversation about anybody else for the rest of the phase. Get some losses in there. Again, I think the idea of going unscathed in a phase against the competitive nature of all these teams is just so difficult, right? Having such a dominance that you never lose a set, let alone if you get into the conversation of losing no games, becomes a wild, wild thing to try and consider. But I also think it is a fun topic, like you said, because here the Warriors have been on a hot streak. They've definitely caught my attention. Game one yesterday, I think, was a really good example of things that can still go wrong for them, right? They get a really, really strong, 30-minute late-game draft. The Dragons literally just counterpick them and make sure that that's never going to happen. Here, I think you get very similar styles of play. I think that a lot of the Warriors, specifically Cuvo out of the jungle, a lot of experience first off playing up against Twig. Two of them have been playing for years and years and years against each other back in Europe as well. And so all of this kind of combines into similar styles of play. Neil can play very aggressive, but Genetics likes to play aggressive. You've got the two solo laners, I think both capable of carrying a game at any given time. Cuvo as well as Twig here, who both very much like their farm for a little while before they start to get engaged. Would not be surprised if we play, we kind of standardize it, but a Kings-style game that fits the Warriors as well.
Yeah, we know what that Kings level of play looks like. We saw it showcased in their Scares match where it was 3-5. Variety ganked early by Cuvo Fred. The Warriors say, okay, well, if you want to play a slow game, we'll just go ahead and swing as fast as we can. And first blood goes to the Oni Warriors jungler.
Yeah, I was thinking too much about Cuvo as a whole and not Cuvo on Pele specifically. Pele specifically here. I love seeing that aggression super early on, just rotating over. Really good on Nika to be able to kind of get the control necessary to keep Variety locked away there. And then it's just a very simple knock-up and damage matchup that you're going to have. And that is a great, great kill, great assist for Cuvo to get.
What ended up getting Genetics?
Was that a minion?
I think he had Scepter aggroing him because he was hitting Vote with the Scepter damage, and so the minions may have poked over to him. But that's
I was so certain he was alive there that I was looking away from that and at the items.
He did have Scepter. Now we have a flop in by Neil Ma on towards Netroid, who does have Leap to get away from the stun. But a great double stun by Neil, though, because Neil should have been the one going down. But because he got both of them just on the edges, the very corners of that cone, it allowed Vote to get some turnaround damage right back at them, and now it's the Oni Warriors up 2-0.
Yeah, well played. And a kill in each lane, I mean, that's perfect for you, right? A brilliant brilliant start to it. Admittedly, you know, the only thing that, like, if you're looking for something better, would have been the kills maybe being on Twig and Netroid, but I'm not going to knock it, right? You're up 2-0. You get the first blood bounty. You get them on important targets, right? Vote gets the kill. Nika gets the kill. I think both of them very adept. And you're going to have Cuvo in more than enough positions this game to pick up some for himself. So just throw the assist there, get a little bit of an experience lead. It's over Twig. I think that's a very comfortable feeling for the jungle. It is worth noting, and this is something I was going to highlight before, no blinks on the side of the Warriors, right?
Wow.
So your engage is going to be Neil's belly flop. Maybe you're going to have it from the Pele ult, but using that to close gap as opposed to just kill someone is always risky.
Jump in, ultimate by Cuvo. Pops those beads early, but it's a 1-for-1 trade as Cuvo was the one tanking up that tower the whole time through. So good on Variety for being able to find a turnaround kill, but once again, the Oni Warriors strike over in the solo lane, trying to keep this Cerberus down.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Cuvo thought he could get out of there, if he knew immediately going into that it was going to be a 1-for-1, and if that was just worthwhile in their eyes, right? Getting that kill, essentially getting to go back to base. I mean, you use your own beads if you're Cuvo there to make sure that you get the kill, but you also get to finish your Jotuns. You get to pick up a Chalice and feel pretty good when you leave the base again. So in a weird way, it's always, you know, memey when we normally say this, but kind of just a free trip back to base where he gets to spend some time buying his items and then comes back right back into it. The jungle just now respawning on the right-hand side of the map, so that's going to make it very easy for the Warriors to find some of that farm. And now I'm more interested in what the Naja response will be from Twig, right? Where are you going to put your focus? Sash onto someone like a King Arthur doesn't feel like it's going to be that great. Dardes feels like he's going to be difficult to lock down a lot of the time. A good transformation in mid can also just stop it in its tracks. Beads are still up over there, so the best target would probably be Cuvo. That one's going to be difficult to lock down.
It'll be tough. Neil Ma gonna try and maybe get in here towards the Scorpion. Shards of Ice, though, will be good to confirm that one for the Kings. And now, still Neil Ma trying to be a bit of a bully towards Captain Twig at the least on this Naja. Slowed down his build just a little bit, though. Didn't end up finishing that mace immediately. Instead, I guess maybe just didn't have enough gold to get a Jotun's Wrath or whatever he may have been going first. So instead, elected to get a second item, Tier 1 Earring, which will slow down that CDR, will slow down the remainder of his build. Just for a little while there, Gore.
Yeah, and it's one of those, again, how long that it's going to keep you out of the engagements and maybe slow down this game, this pace. I don't know that it's going to be that big a deal. I mean, again, looking over towards the way that we typically see Twig and the Kings play, he's looking for farm, right? Yeah, a nice ult would be grand. 30 seconds left on Cuvo's beat, so there's still an opportunity there. Had enough gold to get the tier 3 pretty soon after anyway. So it hasn't changed too much for him in regards of anything. I do want to keep my eyes on that, though, as the desk highlighted it. It's the Sash, I was going to say ult, into a Vulcan ult. I mean, that would have killed Dardes outright there. Maybe hoping to get the beads. That's it's just the hard ask. It's so difficult. It's got to be genetics or Twig or maybe eventually Variety, maybe Netroid. Someone needs to be burning some beats pretty consistently to make it so that Twig feels like he can get a little more done. And that'll open up a ton of opportunities that the Kings otherwise wouldn't have had.
Captain Twig wants to start something in the soul lane, but unfortunately Nika just a little too healthy on the King Arthur. Just enough mana left in the pool as well to have at least an ability or two for an escape. But the Oni Warriors, with those 2 kills they've gotten, have amassed about a 1k gold lead over the Camelot Kings. Nothing that they're unfamiliar with, at least being down. I mean, we used to make jokes about it, and even the players themselves have kind of jokingly said, yeah, you know, we're kind of used to playing 2,000 to 3,000 gold down most of the time. It's not a position that we ever want to be in, but it happens so often that we've just kind of gotten used to learning how to play in that position.
Yeah, right. I think that this is a spot where, I mean, especially at this point, you're every team, you should know at least a little bit more about their dynamic, right? The ones that have gone through some pretty massive changes, like the Scarabs, they've got a different dynamic this phase than they've had for the rest of the year. That's definitely going to change some things. But I do think, at least for this matchup, right, the Kings and the Warriors know what they're getting into, know what they're going to expect from either side. I was thinking Cuvo was about to go for a little bit of a gank. I'm going to keep watching him. Looks like we're going to be seeing the Erendite coming up next as well for his build. Very, very solid. Again, especially without the blink specifically, you need something that helps close that gap and kind of stick to people a little bit better. You don't have anything that's going to be the instant engage for you. So you're going to have to walk up to him, knock him up, and do it the old-fashioned way and hope that things continue to go their way. So I like that pickup. Unfortunate that the beads are down again. Nobody's been super aggressive on the Kings. I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. They are going to have to start dealing with what that means, I think, grand scheme, where that, experience is going. So we're starting to see, a level in mid, a level in the jungle. Technically a level behind for Neil, but it's because everybody else is ahead, so who really cares? And then seeing the gold kind of start to bloom, again, slowly but surely in favor of the Warriors. Makes it a very comfortable spot to be in. I mean, if you're up 3-1, you don't need a ton of hyper aggression. You can just kind of keep letting it roll the way it's rolling.
Keep letting the slow burn go through, maybe, for the Warriors. Now, I will say, it's not often that it's already passed through, the trebuchets already spawned, but I did at least take note that the Oni Warriors actually got all 6 of the first spawn of offerings, which is not an easy thing to do because you have to go to basically enemy purple buff and enemy blue buff in order to take those 2, but Oni Warriors were on top of that, at least on first spawn. And the Camelot Kings are on top of the Scorpion on its next respawn. Taking that one away from the Warriors, that'll keep the enhanced buffs from spawning in. And it's a small path for the Kings to try and get themselves back in this game. Should be another Scorpion for the Camelot Kings. And now a fight breaks out as Nika has picked up Captain Twig. Belly flop, Intoxicate is good. The ultimate from Big Man Ting doesn't get enough. Variety goes for the ult, but the wall from Genetics blocks off the volcanic lightning out of Dardes. And the Oni Warriors will just come out on top with only 1 pick.
Again, well played by where they're able to find their aggression. Unfortunately, they aren't able to turn it into a little bit more, although Cuvo might make me eat my words, actively chasing down Variety and getting a kill there. 2-1 and 2 now for where Cuvo was at. And again, well played. A lot of beats down on the side of the Warriors. Maybe an opening for the Kings over the next couple of minutes, especially with Genetics getting aggressive.
Suns rain through. Vote gets away from the Magma Bomb. Dardes misses the stun. And we'll get the decoy out just in time. Big Man Tings wants the kill, but doesn't get it with that backfire. Just off the mark by the mid laner for the Camelot Kings. And another pickup for the Oni Warriors. They grab their one initially in the fight on the Captain Twig, and then they find an extra little sneaky kill on towards Variety as Cuvo Fred continued to lurk through that right side jungle.
Again, I think you're finding really good priority targets. It'd be nice to get Tings and Netroid on that list of death columns if you're the Warriors, but I don't think you're really mad about it. 1-3-0, you've got Nika off to a decent lead. This is where that discussion typically jumps in, and we've seen this change with supports. It used to be you could, camp somebody if they're 0-5, and we've seen it in supports. Sometimes it makes a big difference, right? 2 to 3 level lead, a lot of gold, things like that. Throwing it onto the solo laner, Variety's still getting a lot of their farm, isn't too far behind where Nika is. It's definitely something that they're going to be feeling for a lot of this. But maybe it's not the worst case scenario for the Kings. Just 1-3-0. You're still going to be late game Cerberus. If you keep going at this pace, the Warriors, again, will be able to cultivate something comfortable. But they're not going to be so far ahead that Variety is just a non-factor. I think that this is still going to be something big. Meanwhile, shutting someone down like Tings consistently really does change the pace of the game.
Unfortunate for Captain Twig, you end up sashing the decoy from Dardes instead of the actual Dardes in that instance. Tings does spot out Cuvo Fred, who's walking over a ward, realizes that, he knows that I'm here. Will drop his own sentry ward. Look at the vision coverage that the Warriors have on this right side. They want another pick on towards Variety. They'll pick him up right away, stunned on landing. Big triple up from Variety isn't enough to slow down Cuvo Fred. Captain Twig goes in with the sash and immediately walks back out. That's not a fight that he wants to pick, and with Neil Ma waiting in the wings, the Oni Warriors will grab yet another kill.
If they had been able to get behind and cut off Twig as well, get that kill, could be big. There's a big Vulcan ult, though.
Doesn't find anyone, but it does help secure the blue buff, but Big Man Tings needs...
Oh, no.
Doesn't care about a blue buff. His life is the one in danger as Cuvo Fred grabs his 4th kill of the game on this Pele. This Morgan-Pele combination, the fact that there's at any given moment 2 Pele's slamming through with the damage output that she has, This is dangerous territory for the Kings.
Very, very well played early game from the Warriors. I mean, uncomfortable, right, in terms of the lead. Vote might even be able to get a solo kill here if Giddy Up's here.
Dashes in. Neil Ma
they got Neil.
has shown up. The Aegis is expended, but Dive Bomb is up, and Neil cannot find a stun this time, but Ricochet off the mark. Freeze gets the beads from Neil Ma, slowed down. Doesn't have belly fluff to get out just yet, and with Captain Twig here, this could just be a double kill turnaround for the Camelot Kings. Captain Twig grabs this one, but he doesn't have the ultimate available to try and get Vote on the turnaround, so instead, the Oni Warriors pay for their over-aggression, but maybe now could be a turn back on towards Captain Twig as Dardes is rotated over.
He's here. No ult available for Dardes, though. Makes things really awkward, right? If you want to go for that engage and you're the Morrigan, you're in this spot where you still have your stun, right? Still a lot of damage, actually. And we've seen it in the past where you can get a really good loop around, essentially just straight up assassinate somebody in the back, and then use your transform for something bigger. Might need to use that here.
I don't know if they want to stick around this one. Vulcan Ultimate does secure the fire. Beads are gone from Netroid as Dardes found the stun, loses his beads. Should be a kill onto somebody. Dardes wants to grab Netroid if he can. Centaurus goes through, and that's 2 picks for the Oni Warriors. They grab the dual lane of the Camelot Kings on the way out, but the Kings do manage to at least get the Fury for themselves.
I think that's, again, just good play for a little bit from both, right? The Kings being able to get the Fury, recognizing they've got the secure, they've got the advantage, they know they can take that. But losing 2 people afterward, it becomes that borderline still technically worthwhile, but not as worthwhile as it would have been otherwise. Losing your support for Gold Fury is almost always a guaranteed, yeah, that's fine. Once you throw pretty much anybody else into the mix, it gets a lot murkier in the waters depending on who it is. And I think losing specifically Netroid this time, Big Man Team's taking a spill earlier. That's big for the Warriors.
3 versus 3. Dardes is wrapping around, finds the stun. On to Big Man Tings. To jump in by Variety. Vulcan Ultimate will get the Aegis out of Dardes. And the ultimate for the start pulls 2 back in. Freeze for Genetics is good. Magma Bomb plus Nika will take down Dardes. It's a 1-1 as the jungler and the mid laner trade out. But can the Camelot Kings get more? Nika is spinning in the middle of 3, gets hit by the Ricochet, has to use the beads, and is fighting for his life to stay alive. But with the wall blocking out one path and the damage from Netroid, it is too much. And the Camelot Kings make it a 2-for-1.
I admire the ability to try and stay alive there. I think Nika reads it and is thinking, okay, use my beads, have some of my mobility, see if I can close this gap or separate us. But it did feel like there wasn't enough mobility available to him at the time of the decision to make it feel as worthwhile. So now those beads are on cooldown for a long time now, about, what, 2.5 minutes, a little over 2 minutes. And so that plays into the favor of the Kings. They've got 2 people without beads on the side of the Warriors. And so they've got a lot of control around these engages and these team fights.
Warriors trying to stop the Pyromancer, but the Camelot Kings have pulled early on. Centaurus thrown out to a few different players. Mouthful shot after will do a lot, but the Warriors steal away the Pyromancer from the Camelot Kings. Not sure exactly what was the ability that snagged that one away. The Oni Warriors prevent the objective from going to the Kings, and they're able to keep up the gold lead that they had earlier, but here's the problem, Gore. With 10 kills that the Warriors have, the 4 on the opposite for the Kings, it has not left this 2,600 gold mark. It has been sitting just under or around 3K for like the last 7 or 8 minutes of play.
Yeah, it's, again, unfortunate for them that it's plateaued so hard, because otherwise you'd be talking about a very easy waltz into a lead, into a win at this point. But the Kings have been playing well, right? If it's something that they do incredibly well, it's usually macro play. The fact that they lose that Pyromancer, that's more beneficial for the Warriors just because it makes sure that that plateau doesn't feel as hard of a ledge for them to climb over. Still in a good position to try and push themselves forward, but a lot more kills that have been happening on the side of the Kings in the last couple of minutes. A lot more presence on the map from the Kings in the last couple of minutes. And so you're getting your blinks from Nika. You're getting a blink here for Cuvo. It opens up more conversations around capabilities to get to Netroids, but more specifically to get to Big Man Tings. But now you're also dealing with almost late game Vulcan damage. You're dealing with almost late game Ho Yi damage. You get into the jungle fights. I like the abilities of the Kings. I like the control of the Kings with the walls, with the big AoEs they have, the amount of CC they have to start fights. I like their team fight a little bit stronger, even though they're behind right now.
Yeah, Camelot Kings, and when you do look at Genetics and his targets that he can catch out with that wall, only Neil Ma can technically get past the wall of his own merits without something like a Phantom Shell, which has not been picked up by anybody on the Oni Warriors. So all 4 of the other members, unless Dardes gets a transform and either belly flops away or transforms into Variety or Netroid and finds their path out of there. When Genetics throws up that wall, the Oni Warriors are going to turn and fight, just like they're being forced to do so now. Sash from Captain Twig will be immune to wave, at least by the cleanse that comes from Vote. Trebuchet pushed up mid, won't get too much value, doesn't get nearly any damage on the tier 1 tower except for maybe 1 fireball thrown out, but it is tier 1 gone from the left and the right side, so it does mean that the Oni Warriors can funnel their attention a little bit more towards mid.
Yeah, it opens up the, like you said, a little bit more focus for them. 5-1 and 2 for Cuvo right now as well, I think is a very, very, essential catalyst for the Warriors to keep pushing things as far forward as they can. With Variety and Genetics, the longer this game goes on, again, going 1 and 4 earlier, now 2 and 4 for Variety, doesn't really mean as much. You're starting to see itemization. I think that's going to matter, but not a lot that is going to be strictly tank killer on the side of the Warriors, and that is still going to give the Kings a big benefit, right? You've got the Chin Size, you've got the Executioner for Netroid. That's going to eat through Nika and Neil Ma. And maybe a Fire Giant if they really want to.
Big Man Tings rotating over. No chance they keep going with this. Nika right behind Big Man.
The Twig almost
will
dead.
stop the Fire Giant. Captain Twig losing over half his health while trying to help take that one down. That's left Variety all by himself in mid. He'll be able to use his jump, get himself back to the safety of tier 1. I like the idea of the Camelot Kings. Go for the heat check, see what you can do to the Fire Giant, see the response time of the Oni Warriors. It's unfortunate for them, the one Oni Warrior that did step forward was Nika on the King Arthur, who could probably have 1v3'd them in that case.
Yeah, and especially with the health bar that Twig was at, Tings not being super tanky, they do still have the secure advantage, right? That's what the Vulcan brings into the conversation. So you have to look at Big Man Tings as a big player.
Instant turnaround by Nika on towards Captain Twig. Belly flop into the jungler, but a good Magma Bomb will keep Neil Ma down. Vulcan ult does hit Neil, almost dead in the back, but Cuvo Fred, the massive damage out of the Pele. That'll be ended right there. Variety gets him with the ult, but a transform, and hey, here's a second Pele for you. This time it's Dardes who's slamming through the back line. Vote grabs the kill, but it'll be Dardes dealing the damage. That Volcanic Lighting, a double for 2 of them. Variety jumps over the wall. The Warriors have picked up 4.
Look, when you talk to the Warriors, you talk about Cuvo's impact, and they're going to tell you, you know what? Sometimes you're going to get a great Cuvo game, sometimes you might not, but what you're always going to get is good energy. That's good energy. That is exactly what that play is to me. That is something that fuels this squad, gives them a lot to work with, and opens up that conversation. Immediate 2-for-1 trade for him, plus the follow-up, a good transformation into Dardes, 7-2-3 slash line out of the jungler, and he might not get this. If they want, they could be kind. They could probably hold this 11 seconds, let Cuvo get the benefit of the they might not even have a choice. They're kind of slow burning the Fire Giant, but get the buff. But that is such a great play, and that's why that blink was something I almost see as necessary, right? Get to the back line, immediately be able to ult somebody. You've got the Erendite. You've got so much that is going to give you the ability to chase people down. The Magi's Revenge picked up as well, right? A lot. That just makes it so easy for you to waltz onto someone like Big Man Tings and decide that he's just not going to get to play this fight. And you can ruin his game and open up so many alleys of conversation for you and save potential plays. And now you've got so much to work with if you're the Warriors just because of one guy. And then, admittedly, Dardes also turning into that one guy.
Fury Part 2 does go to the Kings this time. No Electric Boogaloo, as we don't see a repeating fight immediately afterwards. So Camelot Kings do at least grab one objective for themselves to at least mitigate some of the damage that has been done to them by the Oni Warriors. A 4-for-1 trade earlier on Cuvo Fred, though, still able to get the Fire Giant around his way. So all 5 and blink up in 20 seconds for Cuvo means another easy wraparound initiation to the back line. But for this Camelot Kings team, who is the one pick that they really need to kind of focus out and keep their sights on during these fights?
It's so difficult because if the answer to that is Cuvo, then Dardes can just become Pele and still accomplish something. It's so hard to try and burn through for Nika and Neil. Honestly, I think that some of the focus needs to be not yes, Cuvo, right? 7-2. Yes, absolutely. A little bit onto Dardes, but maybe even throwing some towards Vote, right? 3-0-2. The one thing we've seen about the Chiron, actually, I would argue popularized by the Kings, or at least notably used in the SPL the most by the Kings, was using this Chiron with a very similar build to this to just start a fight. I mean, you know, just sit there and be like, cool, I'm going to pop Centaurus. I'm going to take someone down to half health. Either we're going to have a numbers advantage because that guy can't fight, or he's going to try and fight and we'll kill him anyway. It was such an easy opener when the Kings were able to do that. That Vote has very much the same capabilities and then some here. And we've seen that Centaurus not just be from Vote, we've seen Dardes transform into the Chiron to have that Centaurus to confirm a kill earlier. And so it's not off the table. I think Dardes has such a good amount of transformations, and with this kind of lead for the Warriors, it gives you so many options to play with that I really, really do appreciate the way that they're playing this. Still a little slower right now, right? You've got a Fire Giant, you've got a minute and a half on a power play. Feels like you could maybe be making some more money moves for the team, but you've got tier 2s that you have to stand up to. I like the fact that the Kings are willing to defend it. They've got a little bit better CC, a lot stronger in terms of re-engage for some of these moments. So you have to be cautious if you're splitting up like this, right? One sash admittedly gets eaten by Dardes' bubble, and then the second sash or another stun follow-up afterward. That's where the magic can happen here for the Kings.
This split attention between Netroid and Captain Twig. It's about to tempt Netroid at half HP, and it's about to be 0 if he can't get that dive bomb in time. Nika tanking up the tower, but Dardes can't close the gap. Nika needs one more hit, one more shot on the Netroid is all that's needed. If Vote were in the area, maybe it's Nika who finds the blink and overhead slash to take down the Hunter of the Kings.
I thought for sure, I saw Cuvo walk into the back camps. I thought for sure we were about to say a blink ult over the wall.
Right.
And it was just going to be decimation. 2 players gone, easy pickups for the Warriors. Still get the 1 kill, so it's not necessarily the end of the world for them. But you're in a 4v5. Everybody's stacked up on right. Advantage is still yours for 20 seconds while you have the FG.
Stun onto Variety. Wall from Genetics blocks off the tower. Vote will throw out the ultimate to get some damage to big man Tings, but it's Neil Ma who's soaking up the brunt of it from the tower, which will stand on just a few hundred HP.
Yeah.
And the Oni Warriors with their frontliners not super healthy are going to have to back away. Nika does end up getting cleansed away by Vote, who has been on top of getting these cleanses for his team, making sure to get them out of these really bad situations.
Not only that, but you know, having to be very cautious. You've got the Spirit Robe. Admittedly, it was a passive internal cooldown at the time, so was not going to be saving you, but you still get CCR, right? So you still are going to be able to escape a lot of those. The thing that interests me is watching specifically Neil Ma's build and how that interacted with that tower, because he's got some decent health in there. Not a lot of physical prots. Not a lot of prots just in general. With the Divine Ruin pickup, I mean, you're talking about the boost. Again, this used to be a big thing with Chang'e, but anybody that has this base anti-heal, you can look over towards Cerberus, you can look at Sobek, etc., etc. Anyone in the game that has it, 40% at base, add the Divine Ruin. Now all of a sudden, if you belch on someone, that's a 90% anti-heal. That's on them. It is just shy of an Ankh. And so you really do create a fun scenario for your team where all of the healing gets stripped away from the Kings and virtually one ability, but you're paying for it with your life. Your health is there, but your prots are not. Luckily, with a little bit of an upgrade, you'll be able to do a little more, but Nika almost has to be there for tower sieges or else the team just doesn't have enough to play on.
Fire Giant will go quietly to the Oni Warriors. The Kings will focus towards the left side of the map, and Genex will expend some of his HP to steal the offerings away, but perhaps the Kings might want to make a trip back to base sooner rather than later, because the Warriors have all shown their face on the right-hand side and are now pushing in towards the Phoenix. No minions there. Now we see all the backs come through from the Kings. Neil Ma will tank this one up for a little while, but no backdoor protection is removed for the Oni Warriors. They'll get the bird down to half. The bubble away from Cuvo, and Neil Ma away. Vulcan ultimate doesn't find anybody. Split right in the middle of all 3 that it was aimed at.
I mean, well played by the Warriors, I think, to get the FG, but good timing on the Kings, right? I think that's way more catastrophic if even just one person backs a second later. Good defense. I really do like their capabilities around their Phoenixes. Honestly, to the point where with the lead the Warriors have, you could probably still stand up around that tier 2 in mid if you really want. If this was an EFG, it's a different conversation. But right now, you're not so out of this if you're the Kings that you have to just give up your objectives. You're getting people who are upgrading their starters. You feel like you've got the power spikes in a very similar vein to the Warriors. And even looking at it as, you know, the magic focus versus a spell focus for Dardes. Like, that's the difference in mid laners right now. And then that potion of power as well that maybe gives a little bit of an edge towards the Warriors. But, you know, the gold lead at this point, while it is, you know, a pretty large lead for the Warriors, isn't so massive across every player that we're seeing like very distinct. This is where you're getting, you know, gapped. The biggest one is probably right now mainly Variety, and that's just because that is a tier, or for Nika, it's a tier 3 that Variety just does not have. So a massive passive kind of infusion that otherwise isn't available to the Kings.
Tier 2 in mid, the final permanent structure standing for the Camelot Kings. A bit of a soft defense put up, at least by the Kings. They do have the benefit from the Gold Fury buff, at least giving the tower a little bit of extra protections, but not going to be enough. The Warriors can slowly melt that one down once the minions walk in. And now's the question for the Warriors. How far do they go? Dardes was frontlining for just a moment. Stun is good on the Neil. Cleanse by Vote will make sure that his tank can find a way out.
Yeah.
The Oni Warriors will just slowly take that tower and move their way towards the left lane.
Again, I really appreciate this approach. I think it's well cautioned by the Warriors because it's not massive enough of a lead. If they can get a kill on Twig or a kill on anybody, that could open things up, and Nika has to be careful.
Potentially one towards Nika, who will spin through the Vulcan ultimate. How far can he get? All the way back to the back line. Neil Ma gets pulled in. Cubo Fred on the captain. Twig will find the 1-for-1 trade at the end of the day. Neil Ma goes in, Neil Ma jumps out. But the wall for Genetics, the freeze on after, and Variety slowing down the whole team. Neil Ma might not get to make it out of this fight, if not for the fact that Dardes is still full HP, finds the pick onto Genetics.
Vote still full HP as well. I mean, the two of them just get to hang around. Neil, Nika, burned. Dardes is going to be able to go in. Look at the damage thrown onto Tings.
Dardes, quarter health. Vote still full HP though on this Chiron, not a position that any team wants to be in, but Variety has been healing so much during this fight. His passive steal plus the healing in his kit has allowed Variety to keep this bird alive. Him and Netroid, the lone two to hold out.
Man, that 1-for-1 trade, Cubo going as deep as he did, I think well played. Maybe could have turned into a little more. Maybe if one of those autos, if you know, Tings is in the wrong spot, is the difference between Tings' life and death throughout that entire engagement. But the re-engage, and more specifically, the burn that you get from a late-game Morrigan, the hit that Dardes slammed onto Genetics, it felt like it was going to be a King's turn, tide turner. The minute Cubo goes down, you've got Nika pushed back, Neil pushed back. It really opens up a conversation for them to start surging forward. Unfortunately, Genetics opened that conversation. And Dardes put a period right in the middle of the sentence. He was not going to let him finish his thought, was not going to let him do anything done. I mean, it was a great stun. The combo, the damage that immediately turned onto a Ymir was phenomenal for them. And while it doesn't give them a Phoenix, still gives them a small advantage, right? 2-for-1, a little more gold that goes in their favor. Makes sure that the Fire Giant doesn't feel like an ultimate waste at the very end of the timer. But now I think the Kings are in a better spot to probably try and keep themselves at least somewhat defensive here, right? Last time we saw the second Fire Giant just given over to the Warriors, and it's because they knew they could defend pretty easily around these Phoenixes. Now, you're in a spot where this is going to be EFG. This is a conversation of no backdoor protections. This is a conversation where Vote just walks up and decides to take it. And if they so please, they just transform Dardes into Chiron or into Ho Yi and do even more against the Phoenixes.
Again, Dardes just keeps walking into 3 and he keeps finding these multi-man stuns. Transforms into the Chiron to find some extra damage alongside Vote. And Cubo Fred again in the 1v1 against Captain Twig is winning. There are 2 down on the Kings. And the Oni Warriors can take a free enhanced Fire Giant.
And that's one of those moments you could see the worry or the decision in the Warriors. Do we chase down? If you kill Tings and Twig, you win the game right there. But can you kill them if they get under Phoenix? Do we have the dive for that? No. What they do have, an EFG and a Trebuchet in mid. You're going to be able to pick this one up pretty easily. Yeah, everybody's got to stay around for that. You get the enhanced Fire Giant. And now just pick whichever Phoenix you want. You've got a numbers advantage. This is a wide open map for you to work with.
Nika walking up by himself towards mid while the rest of his team goes to the right. No backdoor protections means Vote is going to slam through the bird of the health. The health of the bird. Sorry, got that one mixed up. The bird of the health. The healthy bird. Can now move over towards mid. But Dardes is just... Dardes, I don't know about this man. He is kind of insane for the way that he has been playing these last couple of fights. I mean, he walked up, not necessarily by himself, but as the front line against 3 people and found a double stun to start that fight. That is some confidence on this mid laner.
Yeah, he has been allowed to do way too much. I mean, maybe not even allowed.
It's criminal.
He's just been doing way too much. 3-1-11, like you said. It is insane what he has been able to apply. And a lot of that, I mean, again, you go back to some of the old Morrigan plays that we used to see when people, and admittedly still sometimes see, just because of how difficult she can be to handle. And that is exactly it. Hey, I'm going to stealth walk up to 3 of you. And then good luck surviving through whatever I decide to do, right? The onslaught of abilities afterward are going to feel way too good. So Dardes, I think, in a brilliant spot with good target acquisition, really opening the doors for him. Cuvo then separates Twig to make sure that there's nothing coming out of the jungle from the Kings. And I mean, JMac, they're approaching 20 kills. They have been absolutely controlling this game. I think really good on the Kings to have not lost at this point, right? I think holding on to this game, the way that they've been playing it, the slowdown that they've made the Warriors take every step of the way, has kept them in this conversation far more than it would be in pretty much any other scenario. So right now we have to look at fire minions pouring down mid, pouring down right. That's going to distract some of the Kings. It's going to take away from their defense on this left-hand side. And it's going to make it even more awkward for them to try and engage the Warriors in a meaningful way that is going to well, impact them in a positive way, right? 4 towers still standing on the other side. Like, you need to win this fight and then some if you're the Kings. Luckily, you know where the Warriors are going to be aiming. The downside is that there's only so much you can do in that position.
Nika by himself in mid. The rest of the team skating between mid and left. As there's only 1 Phoenix left standing. And a wave of not just fire minions, but Oni fire minions pushing in. Captain Twig picked up, slammed down, and killed by Dardes instantly. A power play for the Oni Warriors. Can Dardes find the stun he needs on a variety? Does get hamstrung, and not able to jump over the wall for at least a moment. All 3 Phoenixes down. Fire minions and Oni fire minions all pushing in. All at the same time. Vote has some massive damage to the back. Cubo finds a huge shot with his ultimate, and Dardes picks up a kill by transforming into the Vulcan. Oni Warriors in 35-30 will take game number 1 over the Camelot Kings.
Look, there's a lot in those plays that make things interesting for them, but a lot of it is energy from Cuvo, and specifically being able to get to the backline. The minute that Blink came online, that Pele was closing the gap, getting into in the faces of the carries, of the jungler. I mean, there were several times, it was specifically around that left side. 2 kills that were picked up by Cuvo into 2 kills that were picked up by Dardes. Up to that point, pretty much even game, right? Despite the gold lead on the other side, it's not really anything that far-fetched for the Kings. But that fight showcased the separation of what these 2 teams could do in their full 5-on-5, and it showcased a lot of what I thought the Warriors wanted to do and continually did the rest of that game. Good transformations for Dardes, whether it was into carries, mages, what have you. He was able to do it on time in the right spot with really good Morrigan play beside it. And then all of that culminates into just great team fight. And unfortunately for the Kings, while they had good defense, all they could do was slow them down.
I still can't believe Dardes just got away with criminal murder the amount of times he stealthed up against 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
Stunned,
I feel like a
comboed
Morgan
after.
ban is in the future.
Yeah, honestly, I think you might be right, because when we look at the end of last phase, it was Morgan, Dodgy being constantly banned away from these guys. I think we see why that Morgan doesn't make it through too many times. We'll see if it does in game number 2. That's coming up right after this break.
And in a pretty action-packed game, the Oni Warriors are going to strike first in this set. And, you know, from minute one, it certainly looked like they were out for blood, right? I mean, pretty early deaths online for both side lanes. Genetics falls down as well as Variety. Not a good start, but they were able to find some answers back until it seemed like the Nika and Cuvo combo just was a little bit too much. I mean, those stat lines were a bit ridiculous, diving the back lane consistently. There weren't too many answers, and when Cuvo was shut down, it was after doing huge damage, and then Dardez was able to, like, take the fight from there. Vote just powering down with the Centaurus shots. I mean, half-healthing everyone before some of these fights even began. I kind of felt like Neilma was a bit of a sacrificial lamb in that sense. He would just go in, he'd like, I'll tank up, I'll hit the CC, and you guys do the rest. It was just real clean play out of the Warriors that set.
Yeah, I would say that was a quintessential Warriors game and a quintessential Warriors comp. I love seeing Dardez on the Morgan as per usual. I don't think we're going to see it again.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Especially after that performance. And the Pele combined with it was just unstoppable. I mean, we saw Fred take out 2 by himself before going down, and guess what? There's another Pele coming right up most of the time. And on top of all that, you have this King Arthur, which had 3 of his items nerfed and his base kit nerfed. Still, Nika's seeing a lot of success with that character, which is crazy. I think we'll be seeing more King Arthur. I think people were happy to see him go, but he will be sticking around is my guess, especially after a performance like that. And then, like you mentioned, Vote with this Centaurus over the top, just confirming these kills that were already pretty low and kind of just outputting damage from a distance. It kind of just made a lot of sense with how the Warriors are playing this game.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, that for a while the Dodgy Morgan was the combo that was really difficult to try and deal with, and now there's plenty more iterations of that combo, right? You got the Pele as well with the Morgan. It's just too much damage. So instead of just zoning away all of these possible transformations, maybe it's time to just make sure that Dardez does not get access to the Morgan anymore, because it is so difficult to sneak to the backline like this with so much AoE. I mean, in the desk beforehand, I asked you, like, can Dardez just walk up? You know, it's one of those situations where there's a lot of CC. It didn't seem like it ever hit him. Like, he was just able to just navigate the battlefield so flawlessly with the Morgan, and you know, it's not an easy thing to do, especially with big AoE damage like that. Like, Variety can just channel the breath and, like, circle around whenever he thinks Dardez is coming, but pretty much always an opportune moment to get to the backline. So I definitely echo your sentiment. I don't imagine that the Morgan gets through this time around. And there's a couple picks. You know, the Camelot Kings certainly had some aggression early on, like I said. It wasn't like the comp was completely just, like, throw it out, but I think because of the early start, it's possible that they just want to forget that game, right? Put
Deaths in the side lanes in solo and in duo were abnormalities. It's just something that shouldn't happen. I think that kind of scuffed the rest of the game for them. I think they should be happy sticking with what they know. Go back to those picks that they know that they can win on, and don't panic just because they lost this first game.
Yeah, sounds like the plan, and I think the Camelot Kings will try and go for a similar game as we go for picks and bans for game number 2. Still, though, that Daji is going to be taken away from the Oni Warriors, so Cuvo Fred not going to get his hands on that one, but this time the Ymir is going to be taken away, so Genetics not going to be able to get that one either. You know, last time it was between, like, the Kabrakan and the Ymir, which one was going to be let through. It looks like, why did I say Ymir? That's clearly Yemoja.
It was, I will let you know you're not crazy, that was
okay,
Ymir.
Okay, my bad. Okay, I was going to say.
It was an early Halloween costume, I think.
Okay, gotcha. I thought that I was just going wild over here. Smart call, then, to just continue taking away the Yemoja, followed by the Morgan, which that was the adaptation that I think we both wanted to see. And possibly, if you're a Camelot Kings fan, you definitely wanted to see. So now Dardez is going to have to switch it up, right? Dardez is going to have to go to something different in the mid. I don't imagine there's no other character that plays like the Morgan, so that may change just the mid pick, or it may change all of the Oni Warriors draft, right? That is still yet to be seen, but I do imagine that it's going to be the same sort of style from the Camelot Kings. Try and get pressure in the duo lane, don't get picked in the early, and maybe that game goes a little bit different.
Interesting. So I actually expected them to be stubborn and stick to the Ymir. It looks like the Kings are going to swap it up. Maybe they didn't like the Vulcan in that particular game. I have to imagine this Amuz and Cobb is actually going to mid. They want to switch it up themselves. The Warriors are going to say, we're happy with that. We'll take the Ymir. It's probably, I would consider to be a good matchup into the Amuz and Cobb, especially as the game progresses with the walls. I think the Warriors are probably pretty happy with this trade-off, but I think the Kings are going to look for a little bit of a switch up here.
Yeah, that Chiron gets locked in, though, and that is still, I mean, Vote had such a good performance. The damage, I mean, we highlighted is how much Centaurus is able to do, and it's not like that consistent poke, but it's just to lead the fight every time it starts off. Your carries being like half health before it even begins. You don't want to Aegis that because you want to save it for the later later just damage later on. So not going to be something that is going to be easy to deal with. However, we already see the first adaptations being made. The Horus for Genetics in that support role that is going to bring a ton of mobility late game. Now usually when I talk about Horus, it's just the lockdown, some sustain, and sometimes To the Skies becomes like a topic of conversation. But when it's Genetics, these ults, you have to keep your eyes on wherever this whatever this could be taking you to. I mean, you could transport the whole team from one Phoenix to another. It could provide that shielding as well. Definitely a pick that I like to see Genetics go back to. So holding off on the jungle, letting maybe a few of those bans come through. Captain Twig didn't have the worst performance, but the Naja, I'm going to be honest, I'm just going to say it, I feel like the Naja's bait at this point. Like, I am not liking the performances that I've been seeing from anyone playing the Naja as of recent, so I like that sort of went by the wayside a little bit here.
I know Twig, and I know he's definitely a go-again kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he would be happy to run it back, but it seems probably like, okay, we've seen enough of the Naja. Let's try something else out. I'm happy to see the Horus picked up too. A lot of interesting plays. I know some people aren't the biggest fans of kind of the Horus map play stuff, but I think it's pretty fun to watch to see what they can get away with. I think you can expect maybe some more frenzy, bracer action perhaps, Sunder this game to punish this Ymir. The Warriors are actually going to elect for this Kerninos again back to Dardes. That is clearly his next choice. They're going to stick to that. It worked for them against the Dragons. Let's see if it works for them again here.
Yeah, so that does tell me that probably going to see another Guardian in the solo lane from Nika just because you got the double hunter. I guess it's not a requirement, but it certainly does help when you can diversify some of your damage in that regard. But the Naja and the Pele are going to be taken away from Cuvo Fred in that jungle spot, so going to have to play something different in that regard. The Hunbats comes to mind, right? That is something that he does like to go to in situations like this, where taking a lot of jungle bans, 3 total from the Camelot King. So definitely something that you could fall back to. And AMC, a pretty great target. You're pretty much never missing Fear No Evil on the AMC, and once you get those beads down, can be something you could certainly want to try and focus out. And it looks like that is going to be the case here. Cuvo just wanting to be able to keep that AoE damage under control and saving, I'm assuming, Nika's solo pick for last.
Yeah, Nika's a kind of player that likes the last pick as well. He definitely wants to know what he's into jungle-wise and solo-wise, so they're going to hold off on him. I think the Humbats is a good shout. It makes sense for Fred to pick it here, especially with so many junglers banned. Back to the Kings. I'm not sure what's left in Twig's Godpool. We see the Awilix being hovered, which is a pick that we've seen a little bit more of lately, and he actually is going to lock that. I don't pin him for an Awilix player, so the pick must be doing well in practice. We saw some other people pull it out recently. Scream, namely, doing well on it the other day, too. So I'd actually, and Cure Me too. So I actually do like this pick. I'm not sure if it's Twig's kind of pick, but I guess he'll be showing us today if it is up his alley.
Yeah, and the RDO is going to be the way this draft rounds out. This is, I mean, a little disgusting that RDO made it this far into the draft, right? As we've seen how explosive Nika can be with just a little bit of a lead on this pick, the backline. I mean, it's not going to be fun. And think about all the CC that this kit provides. And I don't think the draft that the Camelot Kings have really, love going into an RDO, right? I mean, there's a lot of abilities like Awilix, for example, that can be difficult to try and fight into that. But I will say there's a ton of knockups. I mean, there is a lot of setup here for Captain Twig on the Awilix. He doesn't have to be just going in blind trying to hit all the knockups himself. He does have a fair bit of setup from his team, which can certainly, ease some of that, difficulty as the game goes on. And it is pretty heavily in the physical side, but they've got plenty of prod tread as well, right? I mean, just Stinger alone, I feel, is enough to just say, hey, we can run 4 Fizz, no problem. And as long as we pick out one person first from the Stinger, we're going to have plenty of damage. Do you sort of echo that sentiment?
Yeah, I definitely do echo that sentiment, and I'm going to put my credibility on the line here as well, and I'm going to say it was a whiff not banning this RDO.
Okay.
I think they only have so many options for a magical between the jungler and the soul laner, and I think RDO was the obvious ban there, especially with the comp that they had so far. They didn't ban it. We'll see if it actually does come back to bite them in the butt, but I am going to put my credibility on the line once more. I swear that has to be a whiff, in my opinion. We'll see if it ends up paying off or not, but I suppose we're ready for the game pretty soon.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like it was Pele and Naja. So if I agree with the Pele ban. I mean, Cuvo was nuts on the Pele, but maybe the Naja maybe the RDO over the Naja could be the case. Doesn't matter in this place because I think Cuvo is extremely happy with getting the Hunbats, right? So doesn't matter in that sense. When you're looking at both of these drafts, again, we talked about the single target damage of the AMC Stinger, but on this side there's a lot of AoE damage. I think a lot of big circles that are pretty easy to initiate on. I think I got to give my edge to the Oni Warriors team fight-wise. What about you?
I think team fight wise, I have a similar opinion here as well. I think this RDO cripple is going to shut down a lot of what they want to do. I think the Chiron ults were really efficient. In the previous game, I think the Ymir walls will be an issue too.
All right, we'll have to see if those Ymir walls are able to affect this one. Will the Oni Warriors take it in 2, or will the Camelot Kings push us to game 3? We're going over to J-Mac and Gore one more time at least.
Yeah, we got to get through game 2 first to see if the Oni Warriors can get that clean sweep that they need over the Camelot Kings and hold on to their undefeated record, or the Camelot Kings going to drag us to a 3rd game today and make it our 2nd of the 2 sets that will also make it the full distance. It's J-Mac, it's Gore, it's Doug. Back in game number 2 for the Camelot Kings and the Oni Warriors. Thank you so much, Trelly and Hurry, over on the devs for breaking that one down. And I think I have to echo some of the sentiment and some of the thoughts coming from them over on the dev score, where we get to late game team fights, even kind of these early scuffling team fights. You're looking at Fear No Evil. You got Wild Hunt out of Dardes as well. Vote, massive long range damage. Feels like it's tough for the Camelot Kings to try and pull a proper fight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where exactly their engage is going to be oriented. Admittedly, they do still have some kind of like, I guess like just get up and go, right? Netroid has a stun, Genetics has a stun, Stinger is just a go punch most of the time for Tings. So I do think they have plenty of opportunities. It's just you're also then playing into a Ymir freeze. 2 relatively safe hunters as well, both with good disengage. Hunbats, who's just Hunbats, and right, again, something Cuvo loves. With the ult available a little bit later, that's going to be massive. And then the RDO. That one causes a lot of trouble, right? That cripple field, depending on where Nika is in the middle of the fight, that one, I think, is going to be a very problematic pick for the Kings to have to deal with. And it could be the difference between winning this game and losing it based on plays made by Nika. So I think solo lane becomes very important. Probably not for the first few minutes, strictly because it's RDO versus Cerberus. Nothing is going to happen over there.
That's riveting gameplay there.
But when they start joining the team fights, it does become a lot more interesting.
Maybe even in the 2v2, it could even become pretty interesting. First totem goes to the Kings. Teleport in. Slow by Cuvo. Featherstep will not stop the dash out of Nika. Variety surrounded and body blocked by his own teammate, and first blood will go to the Oni Warriors on the right side of the map.
Only so much you can do in scenarios like that, right? Look at the smile on Dardes as well, because not only does he have Tings locked under tower, you get first blood on the other side of the map. I mean, you're feeling really good about the way things are shaking out if you're the Warriors. I mean, a good slow, good lockdown. Cuvo super vocal after that one as well. And like you said, it just kind of comes down to where it was. The feather step didn't stop the dash from Nika. Nika held on to it to make sure that it was going to be there for the closed gap. And then Variety in the unfortunate position where you've got an RDO on one side. Right next to that is, unfortunately, is the Hunbats. And then also, unfortunately, in the fray is your own jungler, and it prevents your pathing in certain regards. You already used your leap. There's just nowhere to go.
Just kind of stuck between all 3 of the enemy teams, also all of the walls and rocks that are within the jungle, so not many options for Variety to get out. Good wall will slow things down, but better turnaround stun. Netroid, 1 hit away, freeze, gets the beads from the Hunter of the Camelot Kings. Aggression across the board. Nets 1 kill on the right side, nearly gets a kill over on the left. And we want to talk about all the time on the desk and the cast about pressure being the name of the game for the dual lane, trying to get that Indra Scepter. The Oni Warriors have that in spades so far. Dash expended by Genetics to help secure the purple buff with the Hog.
I feel like still a small win for the Warriors, right? I think that getting those beads, while it's not the kill, and maybe not as massive as it could be for your team overall, you're still now open, right? Netroid has the dive bomb, but if you catch him with a freeze, you catch him with a Fear No Evil, you're just going to have to really, really rely on fast reflexes if you're Netroid, or somebody else on the team being there to peel for you. Because as of right now, I think it'd be a very easy potential rotation. Around the level 5 mark, depends on what Cuvo Fred wants to do.
It's a shorthand name, Cuvid.
Yeah, Cuvo Fred. Because, again, like, Hunbats is a god that a lot of the time, I mean, outside of that level 2 area where you've got the slow, you've got an overhand smash, and then an RDO beside you who has access to, at that point, 4 abilities, technically. Otherwise, most of the time, you just spend the first, like, 10 minutes, I guess 5 minutes, really, farming. get to that level 5 mark where we're about to see Cuvo tick over to, get your ult online, then you enter the conversation of being in the fray, being a really large gank potential and gank player for your team. I also think he doesn't have Blink, so it's going to have to be old-fashioned telegraphed walk up to him.
Well, this should probably be a kill on the Variety. Fear no evil. Ultimate will immune Variety for at least a moment, but there's just too much damage for the half-health Cerberus to deal with. And Cuvo Fred snags his second kill of the game, number 2 for the Warriors, and number 2 onto Variety.
Very, like, deja vu-esque feeling right now, right? Like, it's just a lot of focus on the right-hand side of the map for the Warriors. It's getting Nika and Cuvo ahead. And then the duo lane is doing well enough that even though they're maybe not getting massive kills or creating a lot of opportunities, I think last game they got a kill. But just making sure that they're in a position where Cuvo doesn't have to spend his time coming over here for the focus, doesn't have to worry too much about them and making sure that they're set. They've got their jungle down pat. They've got their lane down pat. So you can spend your time helping out Dardes a little bit, helping out Nika a lot a bit, and then eventually rotating into mid, potentially trying to make sure that this AMC gets punished, despite knowing that you're going to have to deal with a Stinger on the other side.
Nika will be just boxing out on that side. Captain Twig finds a pull on Dardas. Stinger and a beads after. Are the bees enough damage? Not quite. Dardas walks out with what I can only imagine was somewhere around 5 to 10 HP. Takes both ultimates away from the Camelot Kings, and because the Stinger couldn't get picked up there, will be some time before Big Man's able to use that again.
Ask him about it, absolutely calculated. Ask anyone else about it, just really lucky. And a nice pickup from Variety. That was one that if that stun connects, it's probably a kill. Just a little too close for that distance to end up working out. So I think that they're playing well on the Kings. I mean, those are two really good engaged fights. It is just unfortunate that, you know, in that last instance, the stun isn't able to connect under the tower. Or in this instance, the bees were just shy of being the damage that was necessary to help out the squad. And the Warriors, I mean, they're getting away with a lot. 2 kills you would think would maybe translate into something a little more massive in terms of map lead and things like that. But there's not a lot you can do with it this early on. And there haven't been a whole lot of invades from Cuvo. So they haven't really changed the state of the game too much in their favor.
Looking at the 2 Hunters, normally we've been seeing the Transcendence kind of pop its way. I think only Barracuda's been playing the Devour's Gauntlet. But Dominance picked up by Netroid early. We've seen it a couple of times popped up.
It's been Netroid every time, I think.
But I think, yeah, you're right, that Netroid's the only one going for this item. I wonder what value he holds in this versus Transcendence. Do you think maybe it's the God dependency, or do you think it's just player preference at this point?
You know, part of me wanted to say God dependency, but I feel like I've seen him do it on multiple gods. I'd have to go back and like check the last couple of games for him and see those builds, because it really has been his go-to. And, you know, a lot of these other players, like you said, are going the Transcendence. Maybe it's a little bit of instant gratification. Maybe he just likes those numbers a little bit more. Maybe it's as in-depth as the discussion that Trelly said Barra has, where it's just, yeah, I just like the Devourer's Gauntlets, I'm going to pick him up. Maybe it's the same thing here, or Netroid just likes it. He's going to pick it up over anything else.
Pull onto Dardes, not quite there. Damage onto Captain Twig, though, is there. Stinger dropped on the ground. Cuvo Fred will make sure that Big Man doesn't get to pick that one up. So Captain Twig gone. 3 kills for the Oni Warriors. Neil Moss stepping forward. The Warriors want to get a couple more picks here, maybe even just get one if it's possible. But won't find anything more. Genetics and Big Man both sitting under the tier 1.
I mean, this is good pressure, right, from the Warriors. A lot of it is still, for me, leaving me wanting a translation into something, right? Like, you're getting some decent pressure. You're showcasing kill potential. You're dropping your ults. You're taking fights that are successful for you. But what we've been able to see hasn't been a lot of success otherwise.
Vote. Very patient on his play, holding on to his dash. Realize that as soon as the mark and the ricochet comes out, also sees Genetics pop up on the map. Realizes that he can't actually dash backwards right away. Has to wait for the dash out of Genetics first. Then once that goes through, beads in a cleanse, dash on out. And Vote is good, but of course that's his beads down for 220. Dardes hit by Genetics in the back line. Beads now gone for the mid laner. There's a little bit more danger for the Cernanos, who doesn't have any natural CC immunity in the kit.
I'm really curious for the Warriors and where their potential is going to be. Right now, it seems like bullying Twig and Variety is the name of their game plan. And it's working out for them, right? It worked out for them pretty well last game. Cuvo has ult. They're still grouped up. Doesn't seem like they're going to do too much over here. I really am keeping my eyes on the Warriors, though, because, again, despite a relatively successful amount of kills, I mean 3, but at the pace this is going, 3 feels really good. It hasn't really translated a lot into, like, mid-camp control. It hasn't translated a lot into, like, interceptor control. It hasn't given them any neutral farm advantages that they would have over the Kings otherwise. So now you're in this weird spot where you've been winning some of these fights. You showcase what you have. Beads are up for everybody on the Kings that need it as of right now. Twig still doesn't have his, and you've got 3 levels to work with there. But you're not getting the experience, the gold, the other things that were really going to help kind of spiral this into your favor, to the point where Vote was technically a little bit behind in terms of where Netroid was.
Neilma picked up, feeds immediately. Wild Hunt comes through, does find Captain Twig, and a Fear No Evil, but Neilma is stuck inside the Suns, and Genetics is going to go back in with the team. Jump out by Cuvo, blink in by Captain Twig, finds the Feather Step, but too much damage. Returned right back to the jungler. 1-for-1 trade. Neilma goes down for Captain Twig.
Yeah, and you know what? They love that for the Warriors. Yeah, we'll kill your jungler any day of the week. If you just want to take the support, yeah, that's perfectly fine for us. Sovereignty goes large there. You do get the beads off of Neil, and now you get more of a fight.
Maybe more onto Cuvo if that Ricochet would have hit, but instead hit someone else. Variety picks up Nika, who's stuck in the middle 4, finds a massive stun, and is healing back up, but not quite enough. Netroid able to squeak that one out. And maybe it's another turnaround kill, a 2-for-2 trade. This time, it's the solo laners trading out.
So solo for solo, jungle for support, which still favors the Warriors at the end of it, right? Just getting rid of the jungler feels a little bit better. Getting some of those kills, those assists onto Cuvo feels fantastic. And losing Neil, losing Nika isn't the end of the world for the Warriors. Losing Variety isn't necessarily the end of the world, but 3 deaths now for the Cerberus. I think something that the Kings might need to be a little wary of, right, moving forward. I do love the position that they're in, though, right now. You know, Beads, admittedly, worse off for the Warriors. But because they've been winning these fights and kind of controlling the pace of this game, now we're post 10 minutes. I want to start seeing if you can get 2 kills without dropping 2 in the process, you need to be making plays towards the Pyro. You need to be making plays towards the Gold Fury. You need to do something because the gold lead has not really expanded for either of these teams at all this game. It was a little bit earlier in favor of the Warriors, but a lot of that was the first blood bounty, and that's pretty much it. The macro play from the Kings, if you just let them hang out and don't put a lot of pressure onto them, they're just going to eventually eke a lead. That's just the way they play.
Cuvo gets the ultimate. Vote from wide down. Cuvo Fred now losing at it on his beads from Netroid stun. Captain Twig is on the way. Cuvo Fred has got to run. He doesn't have beads either, so he's going to have to hoof it as far as he can go by himself. No knock up there. Captain Twig does get giddy up away, though. And that's a good turnaround by Vote. Now with Genetics here, this could get dicey for the Oni Warriors.
Nice little wall from Neil, just to make sure things don't necessarily
That is a max rank wall, isn't it?
Way. Not only that, I mean, yeah, that lasted forever for how much points. Yeah, it is a max rank wall. I was going to say, there's no way he's put that many into it. It's not often that the wall is what we see people go into first, but that's part of why. You can control so much in the early game. But a lot of the stuff I've been saying about the Warriors applies to the Kings in that scenario. You don't even need the kill. It's just you need something that finally gets you ahead, gets you a good lead, get a little bit of pressure out, make sure that Vote and Cuvo can't do anything. Neil has to fall back, and then immediately encroach on their territory for a Gold Fury.
Love what Genetics does on this Horus. It's always a treat getting to watch this player specifically on this guy, because we've seen Horuses through the league. We've seen wrong use Horus, we've seen inbounds Horus, we've seen so many different plays. We've even seen Paddix's Horus. But there is no player in this league who plays this god like Genetics does. I mean, the types of plays that he makes with it, realizing, hold on. Okay, we're good now. Realizing that, we just took Gold Fury. They could be on Pyromancer. He starts charging up the ultimate early and starts beelining the rest of his team over towards Pyro, so that way Oni Warriors can't take it. Even if they wanted to, they would have already had to have been on it and taken it to half HP. Love watching what Genetics can do on this god.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's just one of the fun marvels that comes with watching genetics on Horus. It is very, very clever. It's one that we get to see pretty often. Polymorph onto Twig, good damage. I'm going to be completely candid about this one. I don't like any of the small engagements that the Warriors have taken over the last couple of minutes. Like, prior to the Gold Fury, I think they were fine. But we see a small skirmish over there in right. Cuvo drops, in my mind, what ended up just being a really wonky ult. Didn't really lock down Twig in a way that was beneficial for them, pushed him under the tower. Didn't lock down Variety in any meaningful way. Kind of saves Nika some pressure, but not a lot. They don't have a lot to follow up. He jumps away to try and get a slow on Variety. Has to just use his beads because Gravity Surge is there. And then even then, that polymorph that comes down from Dardes doesn't feel like it really is necessary. Like, if there was more follow-up or another person there, maybe. But just a couple of engagements from him that don't feel terrible, but don't really add anything, and if anything, maybe even actively, in the case of Kivo's beads, detriment them over the next couple of minutes. Really good play for the Kings in that regard, though, because now not only have you got the Gold Fury, like you said, a very beautiful play from Genetics to then get them in a position in the event they need to steal a Pyromancer, and then they don't even have to steal it. They just get to take it themselves a couple minutes later. And so what was, I mean, burgeoning fights, really good engages, things like that for the Warriors in terms of individual pick play, just crumbles when it comes down to team play in the face of the Kings.
2,000 gold up, as you saw by the charts for the Kings. Grabbing not just gold, but also Pyromancer. But now where is the attention for the Camelot Kings? They push and try and find a pick onto one of the Oni Warriors and maybe get set up for a Fire Giant. Still seems a little early in the game for that. Maybe they can find one for the Camelot Kings as Neil Ma has separated himself from the rest of his team. Genetics will dash back in towards Netroid, and it seems that Genetics is more interested in getting right back out of the fight. Ultimate expended by the Horus, but we have all 10 players on the map, on this left side of the map.
The Trebuchet there, you think it would be a tier 1 in favor of the Kings, especially with the minions coming up. You've got Double Hunter. You can definitely get some pressure out here. Great wall from Neil. That's the other half of having a wall at max rank this early on. It's used so often in such a beautiful way where it's just going to block autos, and it saves your structures in a fight that would have otherwise just been a tier 1. And is that a massive game changer? I mean, at this point, with how close these games are, that 500 gold means a lot for the Kings. And so being able to slow that down, keep the map state somewhat favorable, and make sure that the Kings aren't going to be able to start running away with any open tier 2s or God forbid, open Phoenixes, keeps the Warriors in a spot where they can still keep their mind on some of those fights they had earlier, look around Cuvo's ult, Blink is available for him as well. All of this is going to make it so that the Warriors, next time this Fury respawns, or if they go for the Pyromancer there shortly after, they'll have some way of fighting it.
I'm wondering who's going to be the one to burn the next set of beads for the Oni Warriors, because you don't want Cuvo Fred to be the one burning beads. You want to get full duration of that Fear No Evil, make sure you catch as many people inside as possible to keep the CC lockdown just there. So is it Dardes who drops an ultimate of his own? Is it Neil Ma who goes up and finds a big freeze with a wall? I mean, Gore, who is it for the Warriors that kind of gets the ball rolling so that way Cuvo Fred can have this pop-off potential?
Honestly, I think a lot of it's going to be the RDO and the Emir, right? Like, they just blanket statement, those two should be starting fights pretty often. You've got good root, good engage from an RDO, stun available, etc., etc. Walls, freezes from Ymir, especially since he maxed the wall first. You have to imagine Neil is highly anticipating having good lockdown throughout this fight, and there's not a lot of people that are going to be able to deal with it. I mean, what? Twig can if you expend Suku, Variety can, Genetics, Tings mainly are going to be the ones that get caught the most by it, but if you force out their dash, you drop the wall, and then you get to chase them down, so it ends up working out decently well for the Warriors in those regards. But otherwise, I actually think vote, right? I mean, start things off with a Centaurus, try to get some really good damage at the initial onset of a fight, ideally onto someone like Tings or Netrioid, and then you just have such easy follow-up, a masterful shot to get the slow out there. Really does open up a fun conversation for what the Warriors can do if Vote is able to hit those shots.
Well, beads are now gone from Nika. Some good play by the Camelot Kings to take that defense away from the Bear. Darda is eating a decent bit of damage under this tier 1 tower from the honey, from the bees that are coming from Big Man Tings. And the Camelot Kings are slowly playing around this mid. I thought that they were going to start the Fury just moments ago, and they did initially, but it feels like that call, that ability to take away the beads from Nika opened up the wings for something a little bit more instead. Pyromancer and Genetics, who will only ult backwards, not over towards the Fury, not to the rest of the team, just as a quick retreat.
This could be a good engage. Nice little pull, but it doesn't grab Vote. And it's small moments like that. I mean, J-Mac, look, you know, the kills that we see, none have happened in like 8 minutes. It's all been from that early game aggression. I think that the Kings are in a really good spot to keep the Warriors in control, though. You can see where some of the engage is coming from, not just from the Kings, but also from the Warriors. I just don't know that their team fight is feeling as confident anymore, knowing that the damage Tings is going to do, and specifically on top of the damage that you're getting out of Twig and Netroid, is going to be as massive, even with the Sovereignty on the other side. It feels like, especially with the Stinger Shred that they can have, there's a lot of options for the Kings to just fight into them anyway.
Cuvo Fred puts some threat towards the Primal Fury. And so the Camelot Kings will back away from the objective, not going to continue, even though they had it down to about a third HP. It could have been some decent lockdown at least from Genetics to maybe slow that one down. I mean, the stun plus the knock up after offers at least a couple of seconds where Cuvo Fred would not be able to drop that Fear No Evil, but maybe too much of a risk, too much of a coin toss for the Camelot Kings. And as we start approaching 20 minutes in, a little bit further into the game, we're sitting only 4,000 gold up for the Camelot Kings. Not really a massive lead. You can see it mostly just in a couple of tier 1 items, just between a few individual players. The only real kind of big power spike advantage over is Netroid having that full execution where Vote's still working on his tier 1. Blink stun by Nika, beads from Big Man Ting, Sacred Monkey Toss. Doesn't go probably where Cuvo Fred wants, but that's beads and Aegis from the B.
And it's such a weird balancing point. Ult from Cuvo is going to be up way before those are going to come back up for Big Man Tings. But it almost feels like it would have been nice if you were able to save it for the beads until right after and get some of that CC. Granted, then he would have been under the tower and, you know, timing the window of opportunity, stuff like that. Now I want to see what the Warriors can do with it, right? You get something massive like that off the mid laner on the other side. You're going to get these the Oracle Harpies for the Vision over side the Fury. But not confident enough to go for the Fury itself. Nika should catch this out. But that's a brilliant movement using, again, Genetics' ult to make sure they can traverse the map.
Again, he just keeps doing this. Fire Giant does go to the Kings. Nika doesn't get in there to stop that one. Dardas tries to get it, but gets stunned, loses his beads, and almost a little bit more after. The ult from Variety, good to at least put some threat towards the Oni Warriors, but the Camelot Kings and Genetics again on this horse. I can't believe that he is just able to grab this god so freely. Maybe because it's not a meta pick right now and it's just a pocket, but I'm getting tired of seeing it, man. I mean, I love seeing it, but I'm getting tired of teams getting baited by it.
And when you wonder, as long as Variety lives here, yeah, a little bit of healing for him. When you wonder, when we talk about the Kings having big macro play, there's always some questions, and you know, you can see, like, what does that mean, right? It's very buzzwordy. It has like that kind of jargon-esque feel to it, where it's like, okay, you're just saying something, and people assume it means something, but are you really just saying nothing? This is what we mean. They are down 3 kills. They have not actually won actively any kills for 10 minutes, I believe. And yet they have gone from slightly even, maybe even technically a little behind, to almost 7,000 gold in the lead. They are just playing the map as a whole, the entirety of what you can see, the macro, better than what we're getting out of the Warriors. A lot of that started as mid-camp. Some of it's turning into kills, but that is because they took the small experience leads they could find, turned it into smaller objectives, right? Get yourselves a Fury, get yourselves a Pyromancer. That suddenly gives you a comfortable lead. All of a sudden, you're just making a play for a Fire Giant, because why the hell not? It's 20 minutes into the game, you have the damage, and then you're able to run them down. So using this ult to traverse the map has been great for the Kings, but this is what we mean. This is what exemplifies them to me. And then now winning just begets winning, right? You get all of that in your favor, and you can go onto the Phoenix.
Freeze onto 2, slows that down instantly. Cuvo Fred gets into the back line with a Fear No Evil. Big Man Ting slow. Turnaround Stinger is good. The burst damage is just too much for Cuvo Fred. Phone stuck under the Phoenix, taken down by Netroid. And now Neil Ma at a quarter HP trying to hold out. The bird is his only defense. The rest of his team cannot save him. Nika also jumped on top of. Dardes is back, but only for a brief moment as he is stunned out. And the middle Phoenix gets turned back to the Camelot Kings. And Genetics again on this Horus, making strides.
I think they can end here. Look, you've got 2 people for 30 seconds. You've got the numbers advantage and not a lot of damage on the other side.
Nika pops the beads, gets a decent stun, but Dardes is left to dry. And it's Genetics who grabs the kill. Nika against 5, not enough damage in the world for this Zardio to take them all. But he can at least take 1 before he goes down himself. The Camelot Kings drag us to 3.
And you gotta look at that. Look, ends 8-6 in favor of the Kings. 3 minutes ago, that was 2-5, right? They come through, very clean kills, easy pickups for them, well-played map. That is what you're getting out of the Kings. You are getting excellent shot calling, you are getting excellent experience sharing, and gold spooling. I think that the way they play that, despite the individual picks that we are seeing on the other side, is again just really, really indicative of how much control I think their draft had. Because they didn't need the kills. They just need to poke you out. They just needed to force something to fall down. If Cuvo uses his ult, nothing really comes out of it, as we saw a couple of times, one over in right, one in mid. All of a sudden, you just don't have to worry about the Hunbat's ult. Hey, there's one of their big team fight ultimates, one of their great engages on the side of the Warriors that you can just ignore for the next minute and a half while you continue walking and utilize that to your advantage. And I think the Kings, again, split-second little windows of opportunity, but each time trying to get something massive with it. It's just really, really well-played Smite.
Smart play by the Camelot Kings. A slow burn to start things out, but then a quick slope up. Find themselves in a Game 3 position. Can they bring it back and take down the Oni Warriors? We'll find out right after this break.
And kind of a slow-paced game number 2 there. The Camelot Kings, they were losing some fights early, but always ahead in farm. It seemed to me like they were taking this horse pick. They were getting as much objective damage as possible and saying, let's just go win the fights at objectives fights, I say. But really, it was, what, 5-2? The Camelot Kings were down at that point, but still up so much gold in the process. They fly to 1 Fire Giant, get it extremely fast, and then from then on out, they were able to just win the fights because they were so far ahead and they had so much more objective burn.
Yeah, I like the Kings switched up their draft style this game and went for a more objective style, which they're definitely used to.
Right.
And the horse definitely helps with that too, especially when he's going Bracer and Frenzy. They're kind of just fishing for chances to make things happen in objectives, and eventually it did. Trickled in with a couple picks here. Dardes maybe getting caught out and losing his relics a couple times, but outside of that, just some pretty clean objective play. This is probably one of the only fights we saw that was like more traditional to what we'd expect in a SMITE game, especially early on with all the brawling going on. Outside of that, it was mostly objective play. This Phoenix obviously as well, but for the most part, pretty slow game, objective-minded for sure. That is the King's style, and it worked out for them.
Yeah, it seems to me like in a game 2 situation where you're in danger of getting 2-0, just stick to what you know, and the Camelot Kings know how to farm the map really well. I was a little worried about the Awelix pick because, you know, it does find some good early pressure, but it didn't seem to be doing too much in the early. But when all you really need to do is find like 1 or 2 pulls in off a knockup, and then you're able to end the game at 24 or so minutes, I would say it doesn't really matter what god you pick at that point, right? You just had to get to this point with that much of a gold lead. With that being said, I don't know if I look at the Camelot Kings draft and attribute that to one particular character, except maybe the Horus. Like if I'm the Oni Warriors sitting and looking at how that game went bad, I'm not saying like, man, guys, we gotta focus out this pick. We have to really dial in on our farm, anything like that. It's just we just let them get a little ahead, and it just kept snowballing. We didn't draw a line in the sand and say this is where we're gonna like fight them. They just never really got the chance. So, are you banning the Horus? Are you just farming better? Are you forgetting about that game and running it back and playing a different style? What would you say?
I'd say they have a couple options. I think there's a chance they go towards the Horus. My best guess is they actually go towards the AMC. The thing with AMC is he's a very objective-minded character, but he also has a lot of burst damage available early, so he makes those Horus stuns and knockups, he makes the Awelix ults that much more dangerous that early on. So I think if I were them, I'd look towards the AMC ban if they're going to switch anything up, but we'll see what they do.
All right, we will. So well, we have the picks and bans all locked and loaded, ready to go, jumping into game number 3 here. 1-1, the Oni Warriors took game 1, the Camelot Kings were able to close up game 2, and it looks like the Oni Warriors are going to be first pick this time around. Remember, the Camelot Kings have been banning away the Daji, the Morgan, that sort of thing has not changed, but the Oni Warriors, now that they're in this first pick composition, are not going to take away the Yemoja first. They're going to take away that Kabrakan, they're going to take away that Khepri. Possible they just leave the Yemoja open and force the Camelot Kings to ban it themselves.
Yeah, my guess is the Warriors, Neil is definitely a Yemoja player, so I'm guessing they are looking for the Yemoja themselves here. They do choose to ban the Horus away. That's probably a big reason why they went to first pick, so they could afford to do this target ban to sort of take that away so they don't have to worry about that objective play, that global presence anymore. I think that is smart. I imagine the Kings will probably ban away the Yemoja. I know they value it highly themselves, but we'll see what they end up doing here.
Yeah, we'll have to see. That's really the question, right? Because throughout this set, there has been some thorns in both these team sides. I think the Oni Warriors, as you said, taking the first pick and then taking away Horus, have really put themselves in a pretty strong position here. And I know the Camelot Kings are going to have to think about this one real hard, because do you want to ban away that or the Yemoja, or do you want to ban away the AMC as you highlighted before? It looks like they're a little bit more worried about that AMC, so the Oni Warriors can easily snap block that Yemoja. No way that you're going to let that one go back over into Genetics' hands. But I mean, you don't really have to pick the Ymir here, I suppose, because there's no way the Oni Warriors are going to grab it in this next 2 slots. So you could just let the Ymir go by and grab something you're confident on. I would not be surprised if the Chiron was something that was prioritized, even though it doesn't have the greatest matchup into Yemoja. We just know that both of these teams value that Chiron pick pretty heavily, and the damage it brings is just, I think, too big to look over at this point.
Yeah, these are the 2 teams that actually do play this Chiron pretty often, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see them take it away here. I think that's probably a good shout. It seemed to be pretty effective in what it's doing. For both of these teams, Cupid, almost forgot about him. Cupid has been banned previous to this this game 3, so I'm not too surprised that they end up taking that away. The Kings do love their Cupid. It is a very efficient pick. It does shut down a lot of other picks that could potentially be picked up by the Warriors here. So I think that is probably a good look. They actually don't choose to go for their Guardian. They actually pick a Poseidon, which kind of seems out of the blue to me, Trelly. I think that means maybe they're not looking for the Ymir. Maybe that means they're trying a different playstyle like they did last game, but that definitely is an interesting takeaway with the Poseidon.
Yeah, the Cupid over the Chiron definitely doesn't surprise me there because I do think the Cupid is just huge value in that slot. Again, they could always just grab the Ymir in that third slot, but the Chiron is going to get through. Like, that had to be on the mind of the Camelot Kings. It looks like they are just going to put some more value on the AoE ultimate there, and they'll just take the Ymir rather in this slot to deal with the Chiron. Say, hey, you can't giddy up through the wall. We'll be able to just get superior pressure in that sense. But this Poseidon pick, I mean, more often when we see it, it does farm pretty efficiently, but you know, Big Man Tings was running it with that Bumbus Hammer build, right? With the, you know, full movement speed, you would get Doom Orb, Charon's Coin, and then Toxic Blade, and then just spam auto attacks. With the Bumbus Hammers nerfs, we haven't seen that style of build as of recent, but I do imagine Big Man Tings is going to be pretty solid at just like slowing down the pace of the early game, and as long as those Krakens are landing, you're going to have really solid confirmation onto these objectives, that sort of thing. So still shredding through objectives just as fast as they were last game, pretty much. They don't have the Horus, but they still have plenty of objective burn with the Trident and the Cupid, as well as a ton of confirmation. While we were talking about that, though, the Pegale got locked in. That Cuvo was just looking so solid on. So I imagine the Oni Warriors, looking at this top three, they got to be pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I think the Warriors got a lot of what they wanted. They got Fred back on the Pele. They got Umoja, who's like the premier support pick right now. And they got their Chiron again, so I think they're definitely happy with that. The Kings taking away a Wheelix, I suppose they're worried about bans coming through and kind of getting rid of that and Twig not being left with any options he feels super confident on. I think we can safely say that Naja has been abandoned at this point. The Poseidon pick is a little interesting for me because usually I would expect this to be the Guardian pick for genetics, especially with stuff like Ymir being open.
And then also the Terra, like, they can just ban him out entirely here.
Maybe the Terra is what he's looking for, but the Warriors do get 2 bans, and they do choose to ban the Ymir away first, which is not surprising at all. It must mean to me that Genetics has some kind of pocket pick that he's ready to pull out in order to deal with this Shimoja. I think the Terra is a good look. That could be it, maybe to match the healing or something like that. But especially with Poseidon as well, Poseidon is exceptionally good at just killing this Umoja, taking her out of the fight early and kind of focusing her. Umoja doesn't really have a lot of natural options to kind of deal with what Poseidon brings to the table, so perhaps the Kings are going to go for a game plan here to kind of shut this Umoja down directly by kind of threatening her life, you know, in essence, herself.
Wow, so they actually did ban the Atlas there, so leaving the Terra up, maybe they just felt they had the answers to it. They weren't too much worried about the amount of, you know, healing or setup that it could bring. But now the Camelot Kings, curious that they did ban the Afro, a pick that I do agree would be pretty annoying to deal with into Poseidon, things like that. Maybe that's the purpose, because we haven't seen Afro in quite some time of competitive play. But whenever it does come through into a matchup like the Poseidon and the Cupid, I guess, would just be a little bit too much to pass up. And the Camelot Kings are going to happily just grab the Terra in that slot. So saving Variety's pick until the very end. He's been rocking the Cerberus so far this set, but certainly does have a much deeper god pool if he does just want to transform into something else rather. But, you know, into the Umoja, I still think that Cerb would get a fair bit of value regardless, and you still have the Awilix, so I think there is a lot of combo potential there as well. But now the Oni Warriors are going to be looking for, you got to assume that Chiron, oh, that's true, the Hera is available. They banned the Aphrodite and the CERN over that Hera, so that could be something that they're looking for here. Dardes could also just take the Chiron mid, I suppose, but with Vote playing it so well, they grabbed the Baron.
I heard whispers of the Baron picks being picked in scrims, and I'm excited to see it. It's been a while since we've seen Baron in the mid lane.
I was going to say, this
Please
is,
be
so
in
this
the
is
mid
Baron
lane, by
mid,
the way. We don't know for sure, so let's see the next pick, but I do think it probably is in the mid lane. That should confirm it, that it is going to be a Baron Samdi mid. That is exciting. I do think this is a good game for it, if there is to exist a good game for it, into a character like Poseidon that he can reliably pull in, and Wheelix doesn't have any great natural answers to it either outside of her leap. So I think the Baron, it's not necessarily a bad pick. It's definitely an interesting pick.
Right.
We'll see how well it does here. It kind of, I think, pairs well with the Umoja because it's a lot of CC in mid, which Umoja typically lacks on demand.
Right.
So those two characters should combo well together in what they want to do in team fights. I am a little worried about him kind of being picked out
surviving,
early. By this Poseidon, by this Terra combos. So if he can survive this early game, or you know, on the contrary, get a good early game here. I actually think this Baron 70 pick could be a good look.
So now I'm kind of curious because, and this is going to have nothing to do with any sort of good analysis, but there's someone in ranked at the moment that has like a Smurf-style name that I don't know if it's someone. Maybe it's just Dardes queuing the Baron mix. I see it actually a fair bit, and it always pops off. So maybe Dardes has just been practicing, waiting for this moment. I do think a decent matchup, as you said, into the Poseidon, but also it could quickly turn to a terrible matchup if the Baron gets behind, because at that you can't pop Kraken when you're in the coffin. You know, you have to. I mean, you can't pop Aegis against the Kraken when you're in the coffin. You have to cancel and immediately Aegis, and then if you're losing your ultimate, you're losing a ton of the value that you even pick this Baron Samani for. So it is a bit worrisome. If the Oni Warriors come out swinging with Cuvo on this Pele, which seems to be the plan, let's get ahead early. We let the Camelot Kings run through us in game number 2 in the sense of farm, just like they just got more farm than us. They didn't decide to fight, and we don't want that to happen again. We're going to let Cuvo facilitate us on this Pele. We've got the Baron. As long as you use those mitigations to your strength and just immune the Kraken early on with stuff like that, I think this pick could work.
Yeah, both teams have a lot of healing here as well, Charlie. I'm very excited to see this Baron. If it wasn't apparent already, I hope it works. I don't want to be biased, but I do hope that it works because, come on. Who doesn't like seeing a Baron? A damage Baron. It's been so long.
You could hope the Baron looks good and not hope the Oni Warriors win. I think that's fair.
Sure, that's a good compromise.
Yeah, as long you're just hoping that Dardes doesn't go negative, and if that's what you're hoping for, I think that's a nice respect.
Dardes.
But real quick, let's just take a look at the team fight presence because again, the Camelot Kings, for what they want to do, I assume game number 2 is still on their mind. So. Quick farming, objective burn, and confirm. Do you think they have all 3 of those things?
Yeah, the Poseidon was a great pickup if that's what they're trying to stick towards. You know, they took the Horus away. Genetics might stick more towards those relics that deal damage to objectives. Maybe the Frenzy, maybe the Bracer. Just one of them I think will do with Poseidon on their team, and then they have good objective secure. So if they want to play objective-oriented like they always do, I think their comp definitely suits that playstyle. Okay,
and the Oni Warriors, you got to imagine, again, looking for that early pressure. They are trying to stop some of that excess farming, right? I imagine that Cuvo's just going to sit around solo lane, try and facilitate Nika, try and get this Kakolan ahead. And anti-heal has to be the name of the game again because you're up against Terra, you're up against Cupid Hearts, as well as the Guan Yu at the Fey Blessed Hoops. Do you think like probably a Curse Donk and that'll be it? Or do they even have enough anti-heal to deal with that healing?
We are absolutely going to see 2 onks from both of these teams. Do not be surprised to see that.
All right, well, I'm excited and I don't want to wait any longer. So let's jump into game number 3. J-Mac and Gore, take us away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trelly and Hurrywin over on the desk. We get to jump in to game number 3 and delay no further. And Gore, we're in for a treat for our 3rd game. Baron SMITE in mid lane. It has been, what, 3, 4, probably more years since we have seen something like that pop out for one of these teams. It's so often been in that support role, that solo lane, that getting to see him go back to the mid lane, kind of where he at least had his birth at that point. Whenever he first kind of released into the game, he was nutty, and everybody was playing a mid, building full burst. We'll get to see how Dardes performs on him this time around.
How wild is it that we're excited a mage is in the mid lane? But admittedly, it's way more nuanced than that, but kind of boils down to that, right? He's back where he maybe belongs the most. I think it's really going to be fun. Good damage, good control that Baron is able to bring. I think I'm actually most excited for what he can do with his ult, right? That's typically what we see. A lot of the solo laners, supports, it's around that ultimate that you can pull people in. There's a lot of other stuff. Baron's Brew is very nice for everybody on the team as well. And again, a ton of other things inside his kit. But the minute I saw that with the Emoja, I was like, that's just like the easiest setup in the world all of a sudden, right? Dardes just pulls people in. Neil throws up the walls. If you can grab a couple, or even just one, if you just only have a single target that you really care about, all of a sudden you have a much wider option for what you can try to get done whenever it comes to team fight engages and stuff. So I'm going to be watching over Dardes here with a very close eye to see what goes on.
Have I ever told you how much I love the body block mechanic in Smite? That this is one of the only games of the genre you can just absolutely stand in front of somebody and it will prevent their movement from going through. One of my favorite things to watch. What we just saw with Genetics, I was having a little bit of a giggle whenever I was seeing Genetics constantly walk in front of Neil. Okay, stop him a little bit. Okay, walk in front of him, swing. Just keep seeing him swaying back and forth. The invade does end up needing to require the hog from Genetics. They're a little too much threat from the Emoja to be able to safely secure that one on his own right. But that means that for the next spawn, or at least the next one coming after that one, at least if Neil and Vote decide to invade, it means it could be a little easier for the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could potentially see Neil go for. just because why not? Your Yemoja. It's actually Yemoja in my mind that kind of helps originate a lot of this because you've got Moonstrike and Bubble Bounce. It's so easy to just double down and drop all of your Omi to get all that damage out there and then hog to steal, if you so please, except for when they expect you, right? And so that's kind of where things fall apart. Still, if they can get some pressure back in the lane, which with that rotation from Twig just now to make sure that the Interceptor goes the way of the Kings as well, might be a little bit before they feel super confident and getting aggressive around that purple buff.
Some fighting at least around the Harpy camp on the left-hand side. That Interceptor from earlier on. Solo lane. Well, who cares about Solo? It's a fight in the jungle. Cuba Fred finds the knock up onto Captain Twig. Captain Twig can chase this one down because Captain Twig has the Interceptor. Slow tick after tick. Another Feather Step right after. Doesn't have the Jaguar to get the knock up on Fred just yet. Mika now on the way will deter Captain Twig from diving any further, at least for now, but Captain Twig doesn't seem like he is done trying to go for this blue buff or even just trying to go for the fight.
Yeah, might be able to, or might have been able to make something happen. Variety rotated in, then all of a sudden you got Prot Shred on your side. I think a little bit of damage, sprinkling a healing depending on how his levels have gone. Could have been interesting for them, again, if they really cared about that, but it's the Kings we're talking about, right? Do they care about trying to just get first blood for the sake of getting first blood?
No.
Yes and no, right? Like, it'd be sick, but I don't think they're going to overcommit to something just because it might end up resulting into a kill for them. So again, very well played, I think, for them. Just trying to see what they can grab, what they can get away with. Test the limits of the Warriors. And I think very similar to what we saw earlier today, right? Game 3, especially considering how Game 2 went between these two teams, I would not be surprised if this is one where both sides end up kind of pumping the brakes a little bit. Aggression's still going to be there. At example A, Genetics, looking to get a little aggressive. But you are still going to have the slog of the in-between, right? Where it's like, okay, so who's looking for what objective? Where are they going to be able to find it? Although Genetics caught out a little bit. If Neil can get some Omi back, this might be big.
Giddy up, good vote. Yeah, he doesn't need Omi from Neil Ma. How about just the damage of his own? But now the Captain Twig here could change the tide. Moonstrike is good. Vote will stand in the middle of the minion wave. Now walks away from it. And Captain Twig picks up one. Could be an easy second if that Heart Bomb is a stun. It is indeed, and it'll be double kill for Captain Twig and the Camelot Kings.
Man, there's a world somewhere in there where Vote's able to clear some minions or get the kill onto Netrioid and ticks over to 5 and suddenly has Centaurus and turns that entire thing around. This is not it, right? This is a world where Cuvo is just sitting on top of Big Man Tings where, unfortunately, a duo lane gank goes wrong for the Warriors, but now they managed to scrounge up some scraps elsewhere. And I haven't even talked about this pick. I mean, Cuvo went insane on this pick earlier.
He did. Will likely die here unless Dardes and Nika can show up to stop that one, and they will do so. Dardes jumped on, or dashed on, I should say, by Genetics. Root in place. A follow-up root knockup is good. Dardes pre-beads, but beads doesn't stop damage from Variety on the Cavalry. A charge in for him. The solo laner picks up a kill for the Camelot Kings as well. 2 on the board for the Warriors, but answered back at least by the Camelot Kings. And Cubo Fred, I had to mention that even in that little 1v1 versus Big Man Tings, he used everything to guarantee that kill, ultimate and beads.
Yep. Does mean that he's going to be lacking a little bit. Earlier, though, it was a lot easier, right? It was like, okay, cool, your beads are down, there's an Aja on the other side. You know what you need to avoid. Here, it's a little more complex than that, and also not at all, right? You don't ideally want to get knocked up and pulled in by Twig, but that's not really going to be up to you. That's not something you can actively avoid. Twig, especially when the blink comes back in about 90 seconds. Oh, only has like a 3-second, 4-second window. So maybe that'll work out pretty well for Cuvo. But still, you're going to have the cripple that comes down from Tings, Genetics and his stuns. A lot of things to be wary of if you're Cuvo trying to get aggressive here. And again, without the blink early on, I think what we're going to see is something similar pacing to game number 1, where is he willing to fight and stick to somebody if necessary? Absolutely. Will he pick up an Erendite? Yeah. But is it going to be like clockwork and in the midst of these team fights kind of game-changing the way it was for the Warriors? Probably not till level 12 and that blink comes online. So really watching over Cuvo just to see where that pressure goes, because it can amount into something big, but also not expecting it to be this big, flashy, game-changing play just yet.
I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Dardes this game for the Spare Insanity. like we said on the desk, we said it here and gone to linked it so far, is that we just don't see this god in the mid-roll anymore. We don't see necessarily the full damage picked up. A lot of damage to Neomon. No chance he gets out of there with 4 of the Camelot Kings in enemy jungle. Not a chance that Neomon can survive on his own. Held on to the ultimate for the next fight, but again, I think a lot of vision will be placed towards Dardas to see what he can do with his Baron. How will he go with his build path? Will he take the kind of pseudo-tank solo that we'd seen before, or will he go for the full glass cannon on this Baron? I think that's obviously up for time to tell in this matchup.
Yeah, so far, he's just playing like a mage, right?
Yeah.
Hasn't really given us
Just a mage.
a lot of depth look. Warlock Sash, 17 stacks. Yeah, I'm going to keep watching over this. And this will be good notes. I mean, even if it doesn't, find a win here, there's always that conversation for those of you out there who are like, if you're playing in casual or in ranked, you could probably still utilize whatever build he goes for and make it look pretty good in something that is not Pro League level play, whether or not it ends up winning.
Neomon pushed forward, maybe to try and catch out Netroid, but Netroid had the dash to get out. Cuvo Fred playing aggressive in enemy territory with no backup, by the way. His solo laner left him, and because of that, Cuvo has to use his ult to get out. Rivers here by Neomon will catch out Genetics. The Tremble good after. One more auto from Vote will grab the kill for the Oni Warriors. And now suddenly that 4-kill lead that the Kings had up, it's only been dwindled down to a single kill for the Oni Warriors.
What I think is so interesting is looking at these charts, right, where it's just like, it's not a massive lead for anybody. In fact, Twig might even pull it back more into favor of the Kings.
Good. One more auto from either him or Netroid.
Somebody?
Will do it. Captain Twig here, or not Captain Twig, Big Man Tings, rotating over on the Poseidon. We'll make sure that Vote does have to dash away. So now goes back up to 3-5. Vote still sticking around because Captain Twig and Netroid want to play aggressive on this purple buff. But not sure if there was a call out that Dardas was there, or if it's just a case of, oh, Dardas isn't in lane anymore, probably don't want to stick around too much longer.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about making sure that you don't overstay your welcome on both sides, right? If you're the Warriors surviving in certain instances, if I'm looking at Vote, you want to make sure that you're not going to get caught out. Just as well for the Kings. In a lot of these little engagements that have been happening for them. Got to keep your eyes, though. I think at this point, 9 minutes in, probably not for massive ganks, although Cuvo does just now get his ult back, so that could open up some conversation. I'm really starting to look towards the Pyromancer, right? Already, it's a minute away. We haven't seen it be the primary focus for either of these teams super early on. In fact, it looks like Twig is going to be going for some aggression around the blue buff. But with the Kraken available, fights and specifically objectives for the Kings should be pretty solid.
That's why we see a collapse around Nika at the blue buff. Kraken is there.
God.
And there's just nowhere for the Kukulkan to go. Captain Twig, credit to the kill. 4-0-2 on the Awilus to start this game out. The other 2 kills spread between his side laners. Maybe a pick onto Netroid if Neomon can find a portal of Riptide, but doesn't have the Omi to chase down. Instead, now maybe potentially caught out of position if Genetics can find some good CC.
What a good stun, right? Like, is it going to amount to anything crazy? No. Dardas is out of there. But it just looks so good. And Genetics playing like that. Tings, admittedly, just kind of damage dumping into Nika with the rest of his team, creating an onslaught. But then not losing Netroid, not really losing anything. 4-0, a brilliant start for Twig. And one that I would say is maybe the most hands-on that we've really gotten to see. And it's something that is true about Twig. We all, like to call him a facilitator jungler. And it's because sometimes he has that style of play, right? Put him on Naja. Is he the one who's going to be going 9-0? Maybe like 40% of the time, 30% of the time. Most of the time it's going to be, I'm going to sash, you do something to follow up. That's all that matters. I'm going to take him into the sky, you do something to hit him when they get down here. This is the other side of Twig, right? The one that can come in, find all these kills, be a little bit of a carry. The downside is that he is technically behind in experience compared to Cuvo, because Cuvo's just been farming.
Well, it'll be a Pyromancer for the Kings, but a Gold Fury for the Oni Warriors. Both of them will now realize what the other team has been doing all the while. Oni Warriors come out on top as far as gold is concerned between the 2 objective trade-outs, but Camelot Kings still hold at least a very small 400 gold lead up over the Oni Warriors. Fields of Love expended by Netroid. Mez on the 2. They are waiting out the full duration of that one. That way the Kraken can come through. And Big Man Tings can get a pick for himself. Cuvo Fred has shown up, but everybody on the Kings too healthy for the Oni Warriors to dive in.
It's been a long time since I've seen someone wait out the mez from a Fields of Love.
It's a long one, too.
They can catch up to this. Look, Twig is here. What a good knockup. Gets the beads off Dardes. Just enough aggression to continue the fight.
Uses the coffin, pulls in one. It's a lot of damage returned back by Cuvo Fred. A double kill instantly by the Oni Warriors. Killed one before they can make it to the coffin and takes down a second as soon as they enter in. A good turnaround play by the Oni Warriors.
Look, compared to the last two games, I assumed this one was going to be a lot slower. They've ramped up the amount of kills that they're going for this time around. And it's all going back and forth. Look, there's another one for Tings just to be able to find a kill onto the opposing mid laner there in Dardes. And we get to see some of what this Baron can do for this squad, right? Pulling people in. And it's not just, oh, I'm going to be able to set up Neil and pull him into the walls. It's, oh, I can pull him into Cuvo. I can pull him in for Nika. I can pull him in, theoretically, for Vote. Keep people controlled in a spot where everybody's going to be able to get some very easily guaranteed damage. Admittedly, it's a big cone, but it is a cone nonetheless. So you do have a window of error that things can go wrong. But if Dardes can do something like that, and then maybe next time survive through it all, I think that we're going to get to see some interesting team fights from the Warriors. But what's interesting most to me, J-Mac, is that at the end of it, we're pretty much right back to where they started, right? Hardly any gold separating them, barely any experience separating them, kind of bouncing back and forth. 3 levels in mid, though.
Yeah.
That one's going to be felt in every single engagement until Dardes can catch up.
Now was about a level and a half between Cuvo and Captain Twig, but I think you're right with the 2.5, 3 level lead that big man Tings had amassed over Dardes. Definitely does hurt. Once Dardes goes back to base, though, does have access picking up his Aegis if he wants to grow with that to immediately avoid the damage from the Kraken. And it kind of opens up an old question, you know, that used to be between the mids and the hunters for a little while, which was, do you go for the Aegis? Do you go for the Shell? I'm thinking if there's any time that you're going up against a Poseidon, the answer is probably pretty clear to go for Aegis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that is like the typical very early, like half the time we see people start with an Aegis because they're just like, man, I don't want to deal with this Kraken. I don't want to have to think about it. I just want to make sure that I'm immune to that. The beats start there for Dardes means that it's been a relatively easy target. But yeah, I have to imagine it's going to be Aegis on the back. It's just, when will that back come through? They're zoning around Nika right now.
Ultimate from Nika. No Kraken for Big Man Tings, but a pull back in for Captain Twig. Makes a 1-for-1, 2. If Genetics goes down, Giddy Up will pull him back. But because Vote is hanging up the tower, the Warriors will not continue to push in towards the tier 2. If Genetics walks too far forward, could be a quick pick. But that's solo laner for Hunter for the Oni Warriors.
And honestly, Genetics pulls a lot of aggression his way. I mean, you're looking at Cuvo's ult being down. You're looking at the Fields of Love being down. Neil's ult being down. Genetics ults himself, yeah, and yes, you lose Netroid. It's not great. But also, that could have gone so much worse for you if you're the Kings that I'm sure you're more than fine with a trade like that happening, at least keeping somebody alive, forcing out so much from the Warriors. Now it's going to be, you know, how long can you capitalize on that? Pyro, Gold Fury, both died earlier at the same time, so both are about a minute away. Relic choices, the ones that are down, are going to be back by the time we start to see some fights. So it's going to be the closing of the next items, right? You get the Fey Blessed Hoops. There we go. On both of the supports here. Plus, you get now a tier 3 and that meditation over there, the Cloak of the Ascetic. So a lot of really open options that I think are going to favor the Warriors, especially if they kill off Net.
Goodbye, Netrioid. Because the minions are there to give Cuvo the last auto he needed to get the conal shot through. So Netroid down twice now in just the last couple of minutes.
Pele ult looks so cool.
It really does.
Just that like giant cone of lightning damage is just, that's just so sick. That one makes you feel like a
Not
god.
just that, even just like whenever she does like the wind up and like goes like the spiraling like through the air to get the slam after, or to the slam right before. Just such a cool ability. It's too bad we don't get to see Pele as much until now.
I'm living for it though.
I'm all about it.
I feel like we've seen a lot of sick Pele plays. And speaking of which, Cuvo's 4-0-1, right?
Yeah.
Has the Erendite, has the Brawlers. Neil's just dead.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot more to spin on that one. There was a Kraken, and he was there. That is all that's going to matter.
Coffin pulls Genetics back in.
Well, that might be big.
Needed the root, though. Maybe Vote. If he turns to the left slightly, Could have maybe gotten it, but instead he'll get Captain Twig. Maybe a little bit more worthwhile. Variety dismounts all the cavalry. Nika
Nice knock-up.
finds a 3 in the back line. Variety now rooted down in, finds dash out. Cuvo Fred against Genetics. Will find another kill, a rampage for Cuva as he hits 5 in a row.
Good play, right? I mean, you come in. It sucks that you lose Neil, but look at how much they had to invest to lock Neil down for that long, and then you get to see the turnaround for them. Dardes, admittedly, like you said, kind of keeps Genetics in a position where no, it doesn't get the kill. Yes, it keeps him so low that when that fight breaks out, Genetics can't just run to the front line for the team. Has to play it a little safer, has to be a little further behind for them. You're missing so much utility from the last engagement, so the Warriors just pick a fight. Yeah, they lost that Pyromancer, but I think they come out maybe technically slightly ahead because of the kills.
Cuvo chasing out, but there's a Kraken waiting for him, and Big Man Tings will take the first kill of this fight. But now it's Neil Ma surrounded by 4. Doesn't get through the Riptide, but Darda still picks off Big Man Tings. A 1-1. Maybe more as Neil Ma goes through his Riptide and gets yanked right back out of it. Captain Twig with his 6th kill of the game.
You know, I know the desk had mentioned it, and there's always the talk of synergy with a Wheelish. I love the synergy when a Wheelish is on the other side just because of what you're getting here. Unfortunately, Net takes a little bit of poke. What a masterful shot from Vote.
Dardes, who's he gonna pull in? It's Variety stuck inside the wall. Genetics double dash out, root good onto the Guan Yu. A chase by Vote, and the cavalry will not take him anywhere. It is a kill for Nika, and maybe even more. Double kill for Vote. The Oni Warriors turn the fight right back around.
And I love just looking down at the camera. He's like, Cuvo, he's dead, but he's popping off for him. Like, hands are moving, mouth is going. Same thing, Nika, Vote, all yelling, smile right there for a little bit for Cuvo as they ride the energy down. Very big kills in their favor. And that Fire Giant's looking tasty. You've got 20 seconds left with 2 members of the Kings gone. Net's not going to be around in time by the time you start this. The only worry I have is the Kraken. Just came off cooldown. Is something that the Warriors are going to have to be worried about. If Tings can get here in time, that could be a very easy steal.
Dardes.
Unless they just kill him.
They could just kill him. Nika is trying to zone, but nobody's zoning Big Man Tings. Neil Ma staying at the front. Fire Giant, 20% HP and dropping. Kraken over the wall, too late. The Camelot Kings, though, do manage to steal away the Fire Giant at the end. Nika goes through into the back line, at least grab what? It was the Terra at the end of the day that steals it for Genetics with his walls collapsing in. But can the Camelot Kings pick off even more? Vote gets the kitty up and gets stopped in place by Captain Twig. The Aegis buys him a little bit of time, but the turnaround damage from Vote and Nika is keeping this fight back alive. Centaurus finds the pick. Dardes finds the sun after. Nika finds 2 with the knockup, and Dardes will continue the push until the Camelot Kings can go no further.
I mean, look, it's a beautiful steal. But now with the way the fight shakes out afterward, what you got out of that is that the Warriors don't have Fire Giant. That's pretty much what the Kings are able to hang their hat on. And honestly, J-Mac, that might just be enough to feel happy about, right? Admittedly, you'd love to be able to come in, get the FG, then get the fight afterward. But it was a lot of investment just to steal that away, 50-50 coin toss. And they managed to take it, right? You mentioned it was the Terra clap with the walls. Feels great. Nobody who has it is going to feel super worthwhile. I guess the healing, the sustain that you have on Variety and Genetics is nice for team fights. But it's not the same as having it on like a Hunter and you're knocking down towers. This is going to keep things more or less at a stalemate for a little bit. Still advantage over to the Warriors, right? Because they are the ones who are able to dictate the pace of this game a little bit better. They get a little bit more out of all of this despite losing the Fire Giant because of those kills. And it opens up the map for them to play around with.
Variety jumps on
Yeah,
the
I thought he
force.
was in a lot more trouble, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I was thinking the same thing, and I looked over and I saw the blue diamond next to him and went, "Ah, no, he'll be fine." Even though he dashed and wasted his heal, not really wasted, used on himself to get a little bit of extra, but he'll be just fine, at least for now. Decent bit of CDR as well from Variety means he'll have that ultimate back up in no time for that next team fight. But it's just as you said. Only Variety and Genetics have the Fire Giant buff, which just means, cool, your tanks are going to sustain a little bit easier during the team fights. They've got a little bit more damage to them, but nothing significant at this point. Oni Warriors, with only about an 1,800 or so gold lead, nothing means nothing, basically, at this point of the game. 3,200 XP Means more still, technically, because nobody has hit that level 20 mark yet, but considering the largest disparity that we really have is in the jungle between Cuvo and Captain Twig, nothing too massive for the Oni Warriors this early.
There might be an opportunity sometime in the future for them. Could be in the form of a Pyromancer steal if they're able to get in there on time. It could also just kickstart a fight. And the Kings have to be very cautious about that. Ults up for both sides. Perhaps a favor of what Cuvo can do if he gets to the back line. Again, the blink available makes it really convenient to try and get onto someone like Tings on Twig, on net, and just cause them absolute trouble. But instead, J-Mac, we've moved 8 minutes into the future, and we're still like dead even. And as far as the gameplay goes, I think map state is really going to be the big breaker here. Capabilities of knocking down a tier 2. Phoenix is without the Fire Giant probably off the board for a couple of minutes here for the Warriors. But being able to get a tier 2 over here, there's a Trebuchet on left. I wouldn't mind seeing the Warriors just try to push up and get some gold going in their favor to have some sort of advantage over the Kings.
We do see all 5 grouping, Cuvo, Fred, in the jungle, waiting for the wraparound. Fields of Love is there. A lot of follow-up damage could come through. Kraken hits Neil, and Neil falls down right away. Trebuchet has shown up, but won't get anything more. Camelot Kings at least grab 1 and stop the push of the tier 2. And maybe Captain Twig can find a wraparound of his own.
Now this is, well, depending on whether Twig is able to find Cuvo. He's alone right now. Suku Leap could be there. Blink is there for Twig as well. The knockup's not going to connect. Might just be a simple, steal of the red buff. Force the Warriors to feel awkward in their own jungle. Can't really do anything. Cuvo? Yeah, maybe. I mean, 2 levels up could have potentially gone for a solo kill. Very interesting dynamic for him. But I'm also looking at what it could mean, I think, for the overall feeling of this game. 5-2-4. Cuvo, more than capable of trying to find a little bit more. The other one I was going to harp on, and I was going to think about this. I don't remember if anyone drafted Neil for their fantasy team in our league, but an 0-8-4 game right now on the Emojis. Probably not doing super suitable for those points, and admittedly for the team.
I don't think anybody did. I think it was him and Jake went undrafted, because Gamma got picked up.
That sounds about right, and Yark got picked up.
Yeah. I think it was Neil was the other undrafted support. Wild, but maybe with a slash one like that, maybe better for the people who didn't pick him up in that regard. But as we start approaching 24, 25 minutes, Camelot Kings, dead even game. Even after losing the tier 2 tower up in the middle lane, gold disparity never really went too far. XP starting to close up as players approach this level 20 mark. Again, only major disparity is between Cuvo and Captain Twig. Starter item available for upgrade if Cuvo does have the gold at least to do so, but he might be missing out on just a little bit before being able to upgrade that eye. And then Darkness's build. A little bit of percent pen across, a little bit of flat pen, Soul Reaver. I wonder what his last item is going to be, because Staff of Mirrodin's been such a popular item, and I wonder if it goes well with this Baron Zombie.
Yeah, that'll be fun, I think, just to watch take out, because at this point, you're hitting really hard. Like, you've got the best way to say it, like, you're just playing a mage, right? Like, nothing about that build is really standing out as like egregious. He's just kind of locked in somebody else with a different style. So I'm curious, like you, where he goes with that last item. But you got the mantle that's been scooped up on the very top for Nika. You've now got your Magi's Cloak, potentially Magi's Revenge incoming there for Cuvo relatively soon, depending on whether or not he wants to get the glyph or wants to finish that tier 3 at the very end of his build first. Also think you have to look. Titan's Bane just now picked up for vote tier 2 on grabbing something else there towards the end. And a lot of that's going to play into this. It depends on the length of this Fire Giant fight. We've gotten to some really intricate dances with these two teams. And with the Kraken up on the Kings, with the fact that they stole it from the Warriors last time despite the advantage the Warriors had going into that, I have to imagine we will not see the Warriors at least step up to this FG unless they are very confident that they can either start the fight and win it or get the FG itself.
Hurwin did call that there would be an Ankh on both sides of the playing field.
And he was right.
And he's right, because Neilma and Genetics have both picked that one up. fully upgraded, but it's a meditation for Neil and a phantom shell for genetics as far as their items are concerned for the remainder of the build out. Makes sense, at least for genetics to pick up that phantom shell. Everybody really is going to struggle with those Umoja walls once Neil does drop them out, so an easy way out for his team. Meditation feels like, because of how much anti-heal is picked up, feels like this one's more so just for the cooldown reduction that comes with the secondary of that third tier.
Yeah, right. It's just going to be a nice little, I guess, essentially just sprinkling. And it helps you and your team throughout all of that. Also went for the Compassion. Has a tier 1 over where Genetics is, both level 15. Both capable of really choosing when this fight starts. Ward vision starts to come into play here, I think, very heavily. Like, you can see the sentries for the Warriors that they're dancing on. One of those is going to just now die. And they don't have a lot of deep vision to keep their eyes on the Kings themselves. Just enough to catch them if they decide to go around the sides. This is where those blink ults come in handy and go a little crazy if you're able to find it. I mean, the game's close enough right now. Nika with a nice ult to start things off, but, like, no follow-up, right? And so with the state of this game, with the gold being as close it is, relics pretty much being on similar timers, you know, you're now missing a blink for Nika versus the beads on the side of Tings. I think that beads might be the opener that the Warriors needed to feel confident.
Pyromancer teased by the Oni Warriors. Fire Giant teased by the Camelot Kings. For the last, 2 minutes of play, we've seen a whole lot of nothing happening. Camelot Kings do grab the Pyromancer. Quick and easy grab for them. But the Oni Warriors are still kind of just sticking around to this right side. Nika can go back to base. He can finish up an item or maybe upgrade his teleport if he wants to. Or it could just be a case of a change of scenery of, man, I'm kind of tired of sticking around here for so long. I'm just going to go stretch my legs a little bit. We'll pick up at least a Spirit Robe for his trouble. But the longer that we sit around here, Gore, the longer that these two teams kind of brood over the Fire Giant and wonder who's going to take the fight, who's going to start it out. Does that one favor one team or the other a little bit more?
I mean, starting the fight, I want to give that over to the Warriors. I think they have a lot of really good engage. I think the counter engage from the Kings is incredibly strong, though. So it's one of those things where it's like, you can start it, can you end it? I think will be the big question. Starting the Fire Giant, Kings have the advantage every single time as long as that Kraken's up.
Of Love starts the fight out. The Coffin doesn't pull anybody in, but Neilma has separated himself and his team from Nika Makuvo. Fred in the backline does find the damage to the ult, will lose out on his life at the end. It's a double kill for Netrioid. And the Camelot Kings, now with a 4 versus 3 power play, they can start the Fire Giant or maybe find a pick onto Neilma. Captain Twig wants to slow him down, does find the auto to get the root immediately after. Doesn't find the knockup though. And now with Vote and Dardas closing in, finding the heal, the two of them should be able to get away.
Yeah, at least stay alive, you would think. If they can get out of here, it depends on the engage, right? Ults are down, but Variety almost has his back up. Could have potentially decided to dive the tower if they had stuck along with it. Has it back now. At this point, 17, 15 seconds, 5 until this becomes an EFG. I think you want to... I don't know if you can pull this. I don't know if you can feel confident in it. Even with Tings respawning, there's just enough on the other side and just enough reason to wait that it's almost not worthwhile. There might have been a point where they could have just dropped the chase, gone for fire. It probably would have been a bit of a coin flip, and it could have gone either way. If the Warriors get that, we fall back into the same song and dance routine. Nothing crazy changes over the next few minutes. Meanwhile, they, just deny the Kings from having that. Maybe get some of the gold themselves, knock down a tier 1, maybe that tier 2 on left. Not a whole lot to do if you take that away from the Kings and a steal formation with 2 people dead. Now, everyone's alive again on not just the Warriors, but both sides. Ults are coming back up, and I think most importantly, it's now an enhanced Fire Giant, right? It changes a lot of the gameplay that was going into this. And then you got to look at where this gold lies, right? It's been even for a majority of this. But while these teams have been just sitting here staring at each other down, slowly the Kings have been amassing gold. They've been putting something in their pockets. It's lined up, separating them. They've got an obsidian shard over whatever that tier 3 is going to be on the other side for Dardes, right? You've got a full Odysseus's bow over whatever vote's going to finish there. And while the items themselves might not line up one for one on both sides and give like a very distinct power spike, it is tier 3s in the game that are going to give you massive passives to really work with and continually set the Kings up for success in terms of these fights. You've got an Obsidian Shard on genetics now as well.
Wow.
And so that is something that is going to help them kind of eat through the Warriors in the event that they're just trying to catch somebody out. And at this rate, again, with Kraken up for them, I don't mind their engage. I think I like the Warriors still a little bit more. But you even called it last time. Fields of Love was what really kicked things off. The Warriors can choose a fight. I just don't know that they want to.
Now, the Oni Warriors will wait back. Camelot Kings will group up. They've got a Trebuchet pushing mid. And this could potentially force a fight that the Oni Warriors might not want to take, as they've got to cross through to get through the lane. Double stun by Genetics. No follow-up, though, by the Kings, and the Trebuchet will slowly whittle away at the health bar of the Tier 2 tower. The Warriors just now able to walk into the lane. They'll deal with that one, so no structure goes down this time around. But Gore, this has been, what, a 7-8 minute dance around this Fire Giant? We've seen 2-3 kills in that time. Meanwhile, we're looking up at a scoreboard of 17-17. You wouldn't think that we were at that, considering the last 8 minutes have been basically nothing.
Yeah, it was a whole lot of kills and then
a whole lot of
right?
nothing.
Yeah, a little chasm for us to wait. Especially if you're waiting. I mean, at this point, it's that buildup of anticipation, right? You're waiting for the other shoe to drop Gold Furies up on the left-hand side, but do you risk sending somebody over there, having a 4v5? When the audio cue comes through, the other team knows for a fact they can start up a fight. Pyromancer's right there, but is it worth investing that much into if 5 minutes later, not even 5 minutes later, that's too much of an exaggeration, 5 seconds later, you're just going to eat a loss because you invested too much into the Pyromancer? You can probably burn it down pretty quick by now, but you got to save onto your ults. It's going to be engage, I think, again. And I do believe in the Warriors engage for team fights. I believe maybe a little more so in the Kings counterpunch for a lot of that engagement. So you've got to be careful. Plus, Kraken. As long as Kraken exists, that Fire Giant is just waiting for the Kings. They just have to make sure they don't make this mistake of trying to pull it and losing a lot of their HP or their focus by trying to burn it down fast enough that they can get it from underneath the Warriors.
That right there is how we know a whole lot of nothing has happened. Because this all started after a Pyro went down. And it all started when then the second Pyro went down. And now we're on a third spawn of it. Nika goes in, hits 2 with the ult, but doesn't knock either of them from Variety's immunity through his Tallow Assault, through Genetics' passive immunity. And now with Nika's initiation down for 2 minutes, we could be sitting at another 2 minutes before a fight breaks out. Kraken slams Neil. Big stun to knock him in the back by Cuvo, but a Heart Bomb and a Fields of Love will get the beads away from the Pele. But Captain Twig will find the kill. Variety yanks back into the coffin. Needs a little bit more damage to go down, and Dardes has it to do so. 1-for-1 trade. And the Oni Warriors, and especially the Camelot Kings, now on the run.
Jungle for support, but like you said, on the run. Wheelish is off on the side. All the ults have been used. Gives you a small opening. Maybe a little bit of a window. I like the fallback again. It's just that unfortunate moment. Everything culminated. I was going to say, mentally taxing is how I imagine that, right? If you are a player in that scenario, you have to imagine everything that you're thinking about. It is constantly about your position, their positioning. There's a lot of comms that are going to be going forward. Doesn't culminate into a lot of action, but it feels very similar to like planning the moves on a chessboard, right? Where it's just like you are waiting for the right thing to open up to really kind of present itself for you. And unfortunately, in moments like that, it can be tiring. It can be explosive when it does finally pop off, but then you lose 8 relics on the side of the Kings, right? 2 still standing, and those are both Netroids. And about 8 on the other side. What is that? Except a little less, 6, if you want to do real math and actually count. Maintaining, Aegis there for Dardes, beads there for Vote. A couple of things that can keep them going. Blink, teleport. if you are Cuvo or Nika. Now Kraken's back up. The Warriors have kind of lapsed in where they're standing.
Cuvo to the back, gone. Kraken erases him from the map, but the damage from Dardes and the damage from Vote have put Big Man Tings and Netroid in critical HP. Variety trying to get away, does find the dash, and the tidal wave after doesn't find any damage. Riptide will catch Variety. Genetics will dive in towards 3. Dardes is low. Dardes is gone. Step too far forward, and Netroid finds the kill.
Absolutely 2 for 1 worthwhile, but they might be able to get more. Nika's trying to stay around and fight. There's good walls from Neil, but it's not enough to separate them.
Heart Bomb gets the kill. Now it is Vote and Neil have separated themselves. Neil will make it out, but Vote will not. It's who's going to get the kill. Can he find anything? No, he cannot. It is a triple kill from Netroid. 20 seconds on Cuvo, 40 seconds till anyone else is back up. And the Camelot Kings can maybe try and push to end this game.
Yeah, 10 seconds now for Cuvo. It's guaranteed. This Phoenix is absolutely going to happen. And then you've got so much. Yeah, no, working against you here if you're the Warriors. The timers just aren't going to work well. I've seen Cuvo make an insane defense so far this year. Maybe this is the time he can do it. He's going to get straight to the backline onto Tings, but just not enough damage to close it out.
Not enough. Kraken takes Neil. The crit takes Cuvo. And the Camelot Kings, after 12 minutes of dancing around the Fire Giant, find the picks that they need to put the Oni Warriors in the dirt and take the set 2-1.
Again, patience is a virtue, and that one shows it maybe more than anything. They waited out, and then they waited out, and then they waited out. And you'll never guess what. But then they waited out again, and that is the last one. That's the one that really matters for them because that's what keeps it going. Again, really well played from them. I think a lot of macro play. And it really is the waiting because if you go back and watch that, just see where they're getting their experience and their gold because they start that Fire Giant dance even. It's like 200 gold separating these teams. By the time that last Pyromancer spawned, there was a 5,000 gold lead for the Kings. Literally no kills had happened. They had not done anything else. It was just an objective, some camps, an objective, some camps, an objective, and then all of a sudden it's like, cool, now let's go into the fight like this. You want to start something with us? We finally cultivated a lead, got the items for our favor, and they turned it into something big.
One eternity of a Fire Giant dance later, and it's the Camelot Kings who come out on top in the team fight. They take the set 2-1. We're going to take a break here on the cast and said we'll let the desk continue to break it down.
Yeah, I appreciate that one, J-Mac. Thank you so much. The Camelot Kings taking this one to 3 games and winning out. I remember I was sitting there with Hurrywin in the break room, and we started a bit of a conversation at 27 minutes, and then it was kind of a fight, and we looked up like, oh, no Fire Giant yet. Oh, now it's 30 minutes. Okay, the enhanced Fire Giant. Up until a 12-minute FG dance, but the Camelot Kings win the war of attrition, and they win the war of sustain. The healing really did come into play there. We were talking about none of the poke that was going through it all really started to matter when you have, a Yamoja on one side, the Terra, so much healing on both of these teams. But, I mean, it's almost irrelevant to talk about the early game because it was just an even standpoint at 25 minutes plus. But the team fight, I think the Oni Warriors chased a bit too far. They realized, wait, we lost EFG. We have to try and get some picks. And the Camelot Kings were able to turn that one around.
Yeah, I'd say they were just a bit overzealous in their chase out after that Fire Giant.
Yeah, it was just a little bit too far. But you know what? I don't have to think about it too much. Let's ask Captain Twig exactly what was going on during that game.
Yeah, that's right. I got Twig standing by with me. I get to do it right here. We're not even in the booth. Hi, Charlie. I had no idea. Twig, I got you standing by. This is actually really good because I'm excited to talk about this, mainly because there was a lot of, like, from like a viewership perspective, just farming that goes on towards the end of that game. You guys went into that Fire Giant dance, if you remember it was like 15 minutes ago, and it was an even game. You were cultivating a lot of farm. Like, what is it like from your perspective in moments like that? Like, with the intensity, like, is there a lot of anxiety? Because it just feels like it piles up.
I think there is a lot, especially, for every team. And I think you have to look at a team like Titans for a moment like this. And I use the phrase bore them to death a lot of the time. And that's what Titans do a lot of the time. And I think that's a lot to learn from. For me specifically, it's super anxiety-inducing. I do not feel like the strongest guy in the game as an assassin. You can one-shot, but a lot of the time it's just compassion mitigations plus carries active. So, it's hard. And you just need to trust your teammates and hope everyone does everything properly.
Especially because it is one of those moments where it's like after a while, it's like if I step out of position, it's over. Like, we lose the game, and it's just I made a mistake, and mentally, a small slip up like that can definitely weigh on you. I'm going to rewind it back, though, going back towards game one, right? A pretty good performance from the Warriors, take you guys out, and then you transition into game two, much more solid draft, feels a lot better. What was the conversation between games that kind of got things back for you guys?
I think it was hard to analyze. In a lot of ways, I think we kind of got owned and outplayed a little bit game one. We died in both side lanes, level 2, 3, which is never, a good sign that everyone is losing, aside from Big Man Tings, who always owns. But it's hard. You just got to look at it and say, okay, we need to be able to brawl, we need to be able to skirmish. If we die once, we go again. We can't just be scared the whole game, and we have to look for picks after we've died and respawn. So, it's hard, especially when you get the feeling that you're not outplaying your opponents.
Yeah, and it is a very fun thing to watch for us as like it evolves, because like you get like very standard stuff at the very beginning of a set. And then as we get to game number 3, all of a sudden, like, we're seeing a Poseidon again for you guys, a Baron Samedi on the other side. And I kind of want to ask you about both of those picks, especially from your perspective as a jungler. Like, what is it that the Poseidon brought for you guys that you really wanted it? And what did you think about having to play against a Baron, specifically in mid? Because that one seemed like it's been kind of in the rumblings, but not really played, at least competitively so far.
Yeah, so I mean, with Jordan, he always just wants to play what he feels, and I think Poseidon is very much a god like that, where you got to feel it to play it. I didn't think it really was particularly good into what they played, but he just felt it. And with the Baron, the thing with Dardez is he will have one of the most, I would say versatile, but that's not right, unique play styles in the entire league. And I mean, he'll play it perfectly too. Hera, Baron, whatever else he brings, Kern. So. You just got to adapt and play what you can around it.
Well, and adapt you did. You guys win. You get this 2-1 at the end of the day. So congratulations on your win. Thanks for your time, man, and the interview. But we'll kick it back to the desk, and they can continue to break it down.
Who would have known that the legend Captain Twig was just moments away, and I had no idea. But what a insightful interview, and also what a great game. But we're not done yet. That was only game number 2. There is more SMITE to be played on this SPL Sunday, so we will be able to jump into that in just a second. But, I think... one of those things about the feel. I feel like that a lot. Like, sure, there's some better meta picks in the mid lane, but when Big Man Tings calls for the Kraken, you just feed him the Poseidon, right? It's just one of those things where game number 3, you gotta play what you know.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of faith in him as a player,
Right.
and he said he was feeling that pick, and clearly he made it work. They got a lot of easy kills on that Yamoja, especially early as well, that I really did think helped propel them through the early game, so I think he was right to be feeling it. He certainly looked comfortable. It certainly looked like, a win condition for the Kings later in the game when they did have to do that Fire Giant dance. They had some way to secure the objective. They had some way to kill it quickly. So thank goodness he had this pick, because I really think it was something that helped them bail out of what would otherwise be an eternity of Fire Giant dances.
I think we saw that play a ton, where Cuvo was getting real aggressive in the backline, and then just the Kraken was able to completely stop the in-game. Once the Kraken gets dropped, and as a Pele, you're going blink beads more often than not. Just being able to shut down that ultimate and not really let you get the full value, all of the AoE auto attacks and stuff like the backline, really started to add up. And it's just being able to get Cubo off his rhythm, because if you were watching the player cams during that, every time a kill comes through, it's big yells, knuckle touches all around, hyping up the team. Being able to shut that down just with like one ability, in the sense of this ultimate you can just drop at your feet, I really do think was able to slow some of the momentum that the Oni Warriors were building up there.
Yeah, and I also just think that even watching Netroid right there, these players, especially this backliner combo on the Kings, are very patient players. You see them really just holding their abilities a lot. Like me watching Netroid right there, I see his dashes up for a long time in some periods, and I'm getting in there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But that's why I'm not a professional ADC. That's why he's up there, and I'm not right now, because he has that good decision making where he knows he doesn't need to secure those kills. He has teammates that are going to do it for him. He just needs to sit back and do his damage. That's a big part of what makes the Kings a great team, is just patience and their backliners like that. So just really wanted to give a nod to him, and I think that overall playstyle and way that they're playing the game is leading to a lot of success for them.
Yeah, and we gotta also say, I like the way that Twig phrased that, bore them to death, right? Because when you're at a 15-minute Fire Giant dance, and the one mistake can mess. I mean, we saw it a few times where Neil would just go into a Riptide, immediately get pulled back in by Captain Twig, just like one mistake like that, where you're just like, oh, I accidentally used my escape, I accidentally jumped, I stepped up just a little bit too far. it really does start to get pretty scary. But now we're going to look real quick at the schedule, because like I said, we are not done yet. Let's take a look at what we've seen so far this week and what we still have yet to come. Earlier on today, the Leviathans were able to 2-1 the Olympus Bolts. Camelot Kings just took on the Oni Warriors 2-1. And next up, last matchup of the week, the Jade Dragons taking on the Tartarus Titans. Now remember, as of yesterday, there was 2 undefeated teams. The Oni Warriors were able to defeat the Jade Dragons and make themselves the only ones. Now the Oni Warriors have lost to the Camelot Kings, so that's gone. This is the road to Worlds, and no one is sitting comfortably on the top of the standings. But the Jade Dragons probably want to bounce back after a loss like that. I mean, if you take a look at the standings, we're number 1, now sitting tied for, there's a big like 3-way tie for number 2 at the moment. But the Camelot Kings are sitting 3-1 up there. The Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans, it's actually a 4-way tie, my bad, would all love to jump up to that definitive number 2 spot. So this is going to be a clutch one, because you want to be able to jump back. The Jade Dragons, they want to be able to make those adaptations. They don't want to take 2 losses in a row.
Right, they're back in the lab as well after that loss yesterday. I know they're reevaluating what they were doing. Maybe we'll step away from Scream on the Zeus mid. We'll get back to what we know we can do well, like we saw their adaptation in their last game 3-2.
Right.
So I think they'll stick more to the playstyles they know they're comfortable in. They're going to step away from those, maybe those picks we tried maybe one game in scrims and it worked. But let's stick to the stuff we know is tried and true. Get back to lab, get back to being serious, hone in for Worlds time, and I think that's what we can expect from at least the Dragons in this set coming up.
Yeah, that's something that I'm actually curious about, because Scream did tweet out that he's done messing around,
Yes,
so to
messing
speak.
around.
So probably going to expect to see some regular meta picks, but we don't have to wait for that one too much. We're going to jump to a quick break, and then we're going to bring you guys the Jade Dragons versus the Tartarus Titans right after this.